Well, hello, everybody. It's a chat with Al, and it's before midnight. It's PG-13 or not. Stay tuned. Thank you for everyone who's going to be joining us and stopping by. But we have a really fun chat. I'm very excited. We have our good friend Hasim, Pops Reviews. Please check out his channel and subscribe, do all that good stuff. Link provided in the chat and on the page for his YouTube channel. We also have ST Patrick, Sports Sim Magazine, and the creator of the Squared Circle, a card and dice wrestling game. I'm going to start off. Hello, Hasim. How have you been? And what's going on with your channel? I know you've been doing a lot of Squared Circle. So tell us about that. And then we'll go to our good friend, our new good friend, ST Patrick, who has quite a good sense of humor. Might be back more often.
Can I come back too? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I thank you for the kind words you said last night. I was watching your golf game there, Al. So thank you for the kind words last night. And no, just playing a little squared circle that I found here from Mr. ST Patrick, and it's been going really well. And really wanted to show off the game because I kind of thought there was just no real, no real videos out there or information on the game. That's just great game that he made. So
and you're the first one to do that. Then a couple of people, and you can discuss that after.
I'm not the first, but I think I was like the third because I think one other video got pulled off for whatever reasons. I never saw it, but there was one other guy out there who made a video, but he just made the one. So I'm just like, well, this needs more coverage than what it is,
I Scared ID Gesture. Check out that wonderful channel. Yes. Sports Sims Military. Let me just go through. Hello, Jim L. Hope all is well. Philip Reynolds. David Selinsky says, hello, Pops.
Hello, Al. David.
ST says, great game. Love it.
Thank you, David.
Andrew says, good evening. ID says hello. And then we have Harvey Couch.
Harvey, hey, buddy.
So, all right. But yeah, the game looks very interesting. You've done a marvelous job showcasing it. Because, and I'll get in, and we'll talk about this a little later about when I first looked at the game, but you've explained it so well. And it's a different way for me to look at a game the way the setup is. But to me, watching your videos, watching solo promoters videos,
big shout out.
The game,
big shout out.
And before anyone says, don't you know wrestling's fake? Yes, we know wrestling's fake. It's storytelling. You play Dungeons and Dragons, you play whatever you play. It's storytelling. Guess what? When you play a war game or a sports game, I hate to tell you, it's fake. You enjoy it. You're storytelling. It was just a different way to look at a game and how to interpret it.
Well, can I say something quick? I think yeah, these games that we play, because we play a lot of these sports simulation games and whatnot, and a lot of these games is your imagination and what you watched, what you watched on screen with these sports or wrestling or whatever it is. It plays a huge part in these games, right? So it's whatever you make of the game, right? It's how much fun you have with the game, right? So if someone else who didn't watch wrestling could probably be like, oh, you're just rolling dice and charting moves and stuff, like that's boring, but to me, because I've watched it, Mr. ST Patrick watched it, Al watched wrestling, so our imaginations just run wild. When we roll the dice, you could see the guy laying a punch in and then throwing him in the rope and a back out, like you could picture it in your head. And that's what makes the game more special, right? So
Uncle Dave Gardner says, my games are real. My games are real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? I still can't beat the 86 Mets.
I find they underperform on all these games, actually. That's a team that baffles me because I like those Mets, surprisingly. And they always underperform for me, though.
I wish they'd underperform when I play them. I always do the same thing. Sports Time Machine, our good friend Mr. Utah Mike says he was a play tester. That's awesome.
Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, absolutely.
Arnold Hunter. He says, hi, gentlemen. I recently purchased the New York territory. Cool. Now let's introduce our illustrious special guest.
Yes, sir.
S.T. Patrick.
Well, I don't know about the adjectives there, but I am a guest. Tell
us.
It's so good to be here, Al.
We've
exchanged emails a couple times. It's always been nice and cordial, but it's nice to meet the man, and it's nice to meet Hasim as well. He's also been extremely kind on email when we've exchanged. Always cool. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
It was Pop's idea. He said, let's have ST Patrick. I said, sure, I'd love to have him on. I asked lots of people to come on. They're like, oh, you? No. So I guess let's start off, if I may, and can you tell us a bit about the Sports Sim magazine and the wrestling game, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So the magazine started, I actually have a history magazine first. And while I like doing the history magazine a lot, I would still sort of hurry my days along so I could get home and game, right?
Right.
Because sports games go back to my early childhood. And my uncle actually showed me how to play my first baseball game. And it was a really random baseball game that was, in our terms, completely unrealistic. But it opened that door to...
You walked through.
I could play the 1984 Cubs. I could play the 1985 Cardinals. I could play the Mets from 86. And it was absolutely a wide open door. And then in 8th grade, we played a lot of RPGs, right? So when you open that RPG box, the first thing that you notice are the dice.
Yes.
These magical items.
That tell the story.
Yes. And what we knew, even at that time, I don't mind bragging about it. We were the junior high scholastic bowl team. Thank you very much. And so what we noticed, though, was, these 2D10s, right? These 10-sided dice. We thought, well, you know what? Sports really is everything out of 100. Everything. Everything can be done out of 100. And so we actually ourselves started saying, well, let's go get the baseball stats and let's make our own games and let's make our own basketball games. And we did all of this. And we made horse racing games that were ridiculous. I mean, not good at all. We made pool games and bowling games and just any sport that we could find results for in an almanac.
Yep.
The
almanac, the sports almanacs.
Yes. At the library.
Yep.
We would check that out and check that out and check that out, and then figure out what the math would be on dice, right? And so we finally found Strat for a year, and I like Strat. I still play Strat on computer now. I don't play computer much because I'm on computer all day. I love rolling dice. Dice.
There's something about rolling dice.
Yes.
I play still a lot of PC, but I play a lot more card and dice now because there's something about it. It's relaxing. Sometimes you come home, I can't. By the time I set up a game, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to jump on the PC and play a game. I still get the immersion, but I really do like rolling card and dice. It's a lot of fun. Would you say baseball was the easiest one to create because of the information?
As a kid, I would say basketball.
Okay.
Because we really only concerned ourselves with a couple things, right?
Okay.
And so it was points, it was rebounds, it was passing, it was free throws. That was about it, because that's really all you had stats for.
Right.
So the stats were not complex like they are now, but baseball was our sport. So we really were drawn to micro league baseball on computer. And then I would say we left Strat behind right when we actually found Hafner games in high school. And Hafner Games had everything: college, pro, football.
Now that was on PC,
baseball.
the Hafner Games, correct?
Yes. But you could buy them in large amounts.
Yeah.
So, and it just seemed more real than anything we'd ever done. It definitely seemed more real than Micro League. Now, Micro League was fantastic for its day. Fantastic. But it was also on computer, and there were only 20 or 30 teams, I think.
Didn't they have like the greatest team set?
Yeah. They did. So it's really been a long road, but when I learned how to design using Adobe InDesign, I said, man, what if I could just deal with my sports games all day too? Like, it was kind of an excuse to really get in the hobby. And there had been a few small publications in the past for the gaming industry, but I didn't feel like they had a real magazine yet and one of, the choices I made early on is a vow of poverty for the most part. I wasn't going to charge any game maker for advertising space because I really wanted to do one thing with the magazine. I wanted every gamer to be able to find games.
To promote the hobby.
Maker to find people to play their games.
Yeah. So
I wasn't going to charge for advertising. I wasn't going to charge for any of that for anybody who makes games. So it's been a challenging road. I can't say we are that profitable at all. It's almost a hobbyist thing still for me, but I don't enjoy anything else more than I enjoy that magazine and the games. I mean, it just brings me so much joy, and the community. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You've had, I believe,
nicest people in the world,
I believe Dave Gardner's written articles.
Yeah.
Anthony Crooks, who I know well. I know.
Yes.
Glory Days Boxing, great boxing game.
Yes.
Card and dice. Can purchase at SidelineStrategies.com along with Glory Days College Football. Anthony's a very nice person.
Everybody for the most part has been so incredibly nice and incredibly helpful. Like, what a community, huh? I mean, really. And
when did you start the Sports Sim magazine? Was it 2 years ago?
In about 2 weeks, we'll release issue 13, and we do them every 3 to 4 months. So I'm going to say about 2 years now. It's flown by so fast, but I'm going to say it's been about 2 years. So now they're released the Squared Circle. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
they're released quarterly.
Absolutely, yes. Okay. Yeah. The game actually, the Squared Circle actually began when we were in junior high school.
Really?
A bunch of my friends.
Yep.
Also absolute wrestling fanatics. Happily, unashamed, unabashedly fanatical, right? We just all decided, again, we have these dragon dice. Why don't we use them for sports? And it ended up, well, why don't we make a wrestling game? So it's changed a lot, obviously, since we were in 8th grade. It's changed a lot over the years, but the concept was always kind of an RPG-ish kind of a roll for control.
I'm going to interrupt you for one second.
Yeah.
Philip Reynolds asks, how do you get the current issue? Now, I provided links in the chat and on the page, but go ahead if you want to tell.
No, it's that link. It's a longer link, so I don't like to just read it out loud. But
so if you go to the top of the chat, there's a link for the magazine. If you go to the page, the video page, there's a link there later on or now. That's how you can get it. And it goes right to it. I clicked on it. It works.
Yeah.
Good question, Philip. Thank you.
The magazines and the games are at the same place. So, yeah. And so we just decided, the basics have remained the same. It's roll for control. It's roll the move. It's PowerPoints. It's your RPG style. but the game itself has changed so much in the years. So one thing that hasn't changed, though, is from day one, we decided that we were going to go to the video store at the time and rent every tape they had and record on our VCRs every show that aired. And then we actually wrote down every move. So
you charted, charted the matches.
Yeah, we charted the matches. So when you see the move sets now, they're also still to this day based upon me almost having an OCD about it, about actually charting every match for every show. Now, when you're looking at something like AWA with a couple shows weekly, depending on where you're at in the country, not too hard. When you're talking about Dallas, they basically had one show. They actually had two shows. So they had a show in Dallas and they had a show in Fort Worth. But the Fort Worth airings are pretty hard to find. I have a lot of them, but they're pretty hard to find. The ones I had, I charted. Yeah. When we get to the Nitro era and the Raw era, you're talking about companies that were airing at least 5 shows. So you're talking about Raw, SmackDown, the pay-per-views, and like 3 weekend shows. So imagine the charting. That's going to, 5 shows a week. What, 12 or 13 hours of shows per week? It's not going to be easy, which is why I started charting those well before. And
so you watch, as our good friend Sports Time Machine, Mr. Utah Mike, I'm just going to put this back up again.
Okay.
He says, here's the thing. ST Patrick watches so much video for his wrestling. To be perfectly 100% realistic, problem drives his new bride, Jen, crazy.
Okay.
I had to get that because I thought it was funny.
For all the guys out there, my piece of advice: marry someone who doesn't mind your hobbies.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I could not have found a person who is more helpful online, more supportive, and just
awesome.
She thinks that's kind of cool. I mean,
absolutely. See that? You turn into chat with Al and you're getting life advice. Not for me, because you're like, we're not. But ST Patrick is absolutely correct. I married Nurse Teresa. She helps me like with my cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's you got to do stuff that you might feel uncomfortable
absolutely.
with.
Look.
But
I go to scrapbook stores with her, right? So it's a trade-off. But she helps me. She honestly helps me much more than I help her, which is sad, actually. But
and that's what a relationship all is about, trade-off.
It's funny you guys say that because my wife too, Crafty Wifey, who also has a channel on YouTube and crafting, just like ST, going and doing the crafting stuff. So even behind me, there's all this crafting stuff here.
Yeah. Behind me, there's a big
very much supports
my
me
gaming room.
Games and stuff like that.
Hey, it's a shared space because it's a shared life, right?
Yes.
Roger Horn says, just bought Squared Circle 2 days ago. Can't wait to dive into it. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey, if anyone buys the game as well and needs any help, Hasim,
they can reach out to you.
Hasim can tell you, I love talking about this game on email. I love answering things about the game. Like, I love explaining it. I would rather explain it to you personally than just have you after a day or two just not understand it, not get it, and be like, I'm not going to do this. Right? I want the opportunity to help you. I'm asking you for the opportunity to help you. My email should also be in the show notes, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so please ask. Yeah, absolutely.
It's in the chat and on the page. When I say the page, it's the video page. So if you left the chat and you looked at the page, you can click on it. Yeah, email, how to get the Sports Sim magazine, how to check out Sports Sim magazine, how to check out the Squared Circle game. It's all there. Pops Reviews told me ST Patrick is a gentleman. Pops and ST has been emailing back and forth. It was Pops' idea. Let's have him on because we've been trying to set up a chat. Me and Pops. I think I like to do more of them. I enjoy Pops' company. It'd be fun to get your brother on too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, when he's around, I told him about you, so when he's around, I told him about you, so we'll see what goes on with him.
But
he's a wrestler, by the way, Mr. Patrick. So
cool, great.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to turn over to Pops. Who was some of your favorite wrestlers when you were younger, and when you were watching all this video? Who became, some of your favorite wrestlers?
That's a great question. My favorite when I was a kid was Tito Santana.
Arriba!
Arriba, amigo.
Yeah.
And the Rock and Roll Express
Okay.
were the tag team that I like the most. I really like to see people in the air for the most part. I was really not a huge fan, even back then, of guys who were kind of immobile. I sort of like to see coming off the top rope. I like to see drop kicks. I like to see moves. So as the sport changed in the 90s, I really liked, Eddie Guerrero and Jericho and Dean Malenko.
So you like what they would call the cruiserweights. Those were the high-flying guys at the time.
By far, yeah. Love that stuff. And the Japanese stuff as well. Like the Japanese stuff was really ahead of its time. So when it finally got to America, that style, it was exciting.
You ever see Mil Mascaras?
Yeah.
He was the first. When I watched, he was the first, because I watched WWF. That's what we watched, and I enjoyed WWF.
Yeah.
It was WWF at the 3 W's in the end.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. But I remember when Mil Mascaras, you got to see him wrestle on, like on a taping, and you sit there and you go like, wow. Jimmy Snuka, when I ever saw him go off the turnbuckle, and then everyone's seen the cage match with Don Morocco, or boom, I think that was at Madison Square Garden. I think
it was.
And the place explodes. And when I saw that, WWF had a Sunday show that ran, and it ran all year, but it was just taped of different events. And it always was over before football in the fall. But I want to say it went from 10 to 12, or maybe it was only even an hour. But that's when I saw it, when it was like, holy cow.
It's a magical moment. No, it's a magical moment. What I think people don't always know is that Macho Man was dropping an elbow off the top of the cage for his father's outlaw territory earlier than that.
Yeah.
But because
was that kind of like in the Memphis area?
Yeah. He was a competitor. He was an outlaw competitor.
They were a pirate outlaw, because they broke away.
And so he was dropping the elbow off the top of the cage, before 100 people in the crowd in 1981. So, but it wasn't Madison Square Garden, Pikeville, Kentucky.
There's something special when you do it at a big venue and the crowd pops.
Yeah.
Okay.
When was Snuka and Backlund? Because I think that happened before Morocco, I think, too, right?
Yeah, Snook and Backlund would have definitely been earlier than 83. I think Morocco was 83.
Yeah. Snuka was a heel when he faced Backlund.
Yeah.
And Snuka was managed by...
He was.
Albano. Was it Lou Albano?
Albano, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he came off the cage and Backlund moved out of the way, right? But everyone always remembers Morocco.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And it brings up a good point about the game as well. And one of the things that I get asked a lot is about the stipulation matches, right? At what point are you going to introduce a ladder match, a TLC match, a War Games match, all these matches?
Yep.
And what I try to do is I want to release the match in the era where I chart it first. So I wasn't going to release a TLC match in the 1980s because it just doesn't make sense. It's not the right era. So for anyone out there asking about Hell in a Cell or something like that, it will debut when it actually debuts in the territory. Because
your wrestling books or the sets, they're a set period of time.
Absolutely.
So we'll say like the WWF one is early to mid 80s.
It's 85 through 90.
Oh, I'm sorry, 85 through 90. I apologize. So you're gonna have probably steel cage matches.
Yeah,
You
do.
have the
you actually have a lot in there. There's a lot of stipulation matches, from tuxedo matches, God forbid, to I hate tuxedo matches, but it had to go in. Right? It had to go in because it happened, so it's got to go in.
Yeah,
doesn't mean the promoter has to do it.
Yeah.
No.
Do what you want.
Imagine me thinking to myself as I'm writing down tuxedo match. Okay, so
how do you rate that?
What would he roll to tear off the jacket? What would he roll to tear the pants off? I'm like, man, I got to go to lunch. Like, I can't. I can't believe I'm writing the rules for this.
Did that initiate with who? I don't recall.
I think it was Ricky Steamboat against Mr. Fuji.
Oh, that's right. Mr. Fuji, when he became a manager, had the derby. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Oh, that's interesting.
I think they did it on Saturday Night's Main Event once.
Those were great shows.
They also would do it around the territory. Yeah.
Those were great shows. Saturday Night Main Event.
Yes.
Those were pay-per-view quality.
Exciting shows.
On NBC, late. They came on at 11 or 11. No, after the news, I think.
Yeah.
11:30, something like that, I think.
Yep.
Those were fun.
I just remember. I remember the feeling of like watching Saturday Night's Main Event, waiting for it, and almost feeling like it was like Christmas or something. Like something special. Right? Yes.
Again, we watched WWF. I know Pop's Review watched. Hasim watched WWF. So you get your Saturday show. Well, they're pretty much squash matches, and at the end you get a decent match. And with WWF, they were showing you shows from like all around. They didn't have like a TV. It wasn't really, I don't remember it as being in a studio. They were at a venue and they'd show you there's some shows. And I don't think they were always at the same venue. Maybe they were, but they'd give you like a tag match or decent tag match at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I've said it before, the Lumberjacks scared the bejesus out of me when they who did they beat? I think they beat DiNucci and Bravo. And I was like, I mean, these guys were, and Dominic DiNucci and Dino Bravo are not small guys, but these guys just mean.
It is. So it's really challenging for me to try to like create the characters on paper, but also the excitement, and then also the types of shows. A television show and a house show in Pikeville, Kentucky, in Poughkeepsie, New York, is not the same as the Boston Garden or Madison Square Garden or the Spectrum. Right. These are not the same shows, and they're all not the same as a pay-per-view or Supercard, as I call it, or the Omni or something like that in Atlanta. And so, what we wanted to really create was sort of the Strat Appa version of the sport, to where it was going to be a little complex, and that's, it's just part of it. We added a pretty quick play function, but, and I like it. I like how it works, but it was never supposed to be that for the whole game. It was supposed to be a full play. I'm running my own territory. I want to do storylines. I want to kind of guide them myself as opposed to having to roll for every storyline. I will say, though, we had enough people write and say, I don't really know how to make storylines, so can there be some kind of option where you can just roll for a random storyline? And the raffle chart that's in the game is an in-match storyline generator. But we wanted something before the match and after the match. So let's say you wanted to roll a storyline before the match or a storyline after the match. So the next book that we have out will probably not have this in it, but the one after it will have what is a random angle generator for before the match and after the match. I'm thinking about turning those into cards, but anytime that you want to do cards, then you have to figure out where you want to have the cards made, and if you want the gamers to just be able to order from that side, or if they need to order the cards for me, and then I have to go to the mailbox. So making charts just seem 100 times easier.
Well, the way it's set up too, it's you know, it's made like a book fashion, I will say. But one more thing, and then we'll let Pops. So those were your favorite wrestlers that you saw. What were some of your favorite wrestlers that you discovered or you enjoyed, you didn't know about, or because you watched so much video?
Yeah. I would say almost all of those are stars from other countries. So, you know, the first time I saw Rey Mysterio Jr., he wasn't in America. The first time I saw the guys who ended up on Nitro.
Yeah.
All of the south of the border folks who end up on Nitro.
Lucha Libres.
Yeah.
The Lucha Libres, you know, the Luchadores.
That took me a while to get used to. Because
I love
it was a different style of wrestling. Now
I love it. Right?
I told you this offline. Here's my big beef with wrestling now, and I like AWA. That's what I watch. I mean AEW. Sorry.
Yeah. I love AEW.
The biggest beef I've gone to live shows. So much fun with my wife. I drag her there. Actually, she drags me there because she actually enjoys it. The false finishes I can't stand. I wish they cut back just a little bit on that a lot. Because here's the thing, and it's with all wrestling, even the other company, the WWE, and probably I've watched some stuff on YouTube, NWA and it's MLW. Is it MLW?
Mm-hmm.
I've watched other.
Yeah,
that's the thing. The false finishes.
There are a lot of them now, and it changes like the game structure actually too.
Yeah,
because every time I watch a match now, I can't like not chart it in my head.
Right.
So because it's so natural to do that, I'm just going, okay, here's that move, and then that move. The problem is, you know, a Roman Reigns against Brock match right now, they're doing their 4 or 5 main moves 5 to 10 times each in the match.
That's to me. I still enjoy the one guy I like to watch from WWE. I love Roman Reigns. I think he's me personally. I think he's good on the mic. I think his matches are good. I watched the Logan Paul.
Yeah.
I watched that match from Saudi Arabia. It's the only one I watched on that card. It was, and then they got goofy at the end, but it's wrestling. Yeah. But that was phenomenal for the athleticism in that.
Well, I think Roman gets a bad rap.
I like Roman Reigns.
I don't like how they always handle his storylines per se, but I think he's always solid in the ring.
I think he handles. If you watch, like he does the little short videos on his own, like on his whatever channels, they're hilarious, and he stays in character. I think the thing with me with the false finishes is when you hit someone with a finishing move, it's supposed to be a finishing move. I'd rather see someone block it a couple of times or don't do it. That's one pet peeve. I just have to get this out because I can talk wrestling with you guys. Another pet peeve of mine, and I just throw it out there, and even to the chat. You know when they go up on the ropes, again, you're imagining, okay, this is a play, right? But it's supposed to be like a real fight. No one's gonna sit there for 58 seconds while you jostle, and you either got to do it quick or don't do it at all.
Yeah,
because I don't agree with everything. Certain of the older, I watch some podcasts and stuff on YouTube, or they put their podcasts on YouTube. I don't agree with everything about the old school wrestling because things change. I get that.
Yeah.
But I do agree with believable. That's what I agree with.
So, it's really difficult because one thing, excuse me, guys. One thing that I've heard about the 80s so far, the idea, I should explain this. The idea was to start when we first made the game, to start in the heart of the 1980s and then expand outward in both directions from there. So that's the plan, is to go sort of outward in both directions. So we did start with the 80s. Well, I think people have a really rosy view of the 80s in their head, as I do. But realistically, the 80s, most of the matches were a lot of arm drags, punches, kicks, stomps, and takedowns, and chops and slaps. You get a lot of that. So I'll have guys.
I still, if done right, if done right, it's still an entertaining match.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll have some guys comment, because I think what they want to happen in their mind is to do 10 or 15 moves and hit the finisher, right? And that's just not what wrestling was in the 80s. I use the example of Starrcade 83. The Starrcade 83 main event is the Nature Boy going against the champion Harley Race. This is remembered as a classic match. The problem is when you watch it and chart it, and I have, when you watch it, it is almost all takedown, armbar, and it's a steel cage match. It's a steel cage match. And almost the entire match happens on the ground. And as I was watching it, I was like, man, I remember this being a lot better, right? So when I chart it, it ends up being, okay, 18 arm bars, 10 takedowns, 10 chops. And so a gamer's rolling this match out. If he rolled that exact match out, he writes and he says, it's kind of boring. Like, all I'm going to get is chops and punches and kicks.
Now, in that match, though,
but that's the era.
Yeah, that's the way that it was wrestled. That's the way Harley Race wrestled.
Yeah.
Also, what probably no game can get any sports type of sim game, the emotion that those two guys put into it. So that's part of the storytelling, which I think back then, the storytelling was better. I'm just going to give a real quick example.
It was longer. It
was
longer for sure.
Yes. Here's my quick example. It's not so much MJF and AEW and Bryan Danielson. Shorter storyline. When that match happened, we watched it, Nurse Teresa and I. It was a phenomenal match. A couple of high-flying moves. Yeah, there's some false finishes they normally have, but it was a tremendous match. It was fun to watch. I think AEW did a tremendous disservice. After a few weeks, you should have put that match on one of your TV shows because it was so good, in my opinion. And I think if you could have a hybrid of that, like the Young Bucks, they're very athletic, right?
Yeah.
Again, but it's 4,000 super, like, remember Chris Adams? The super kick?
I love Chris Adams.
I love Chris Adams. God rest his soul. A lot of those guys I watch. That's just my little, I still enjoy wrestling.
So here's an example as well of a thing that we think we remember that wasn't exactly accurate. So as I'm charting Texas, the Von Erichs are always known for what move?
The claw.
The claw. They don't use it much.
Right? They don't use it to finish matches.
No.
Hardly ever.
People always got out of the claw or someone interfered.
Yes. They would always do it often, but it would be towards the start of the match, halfway through the match. It was a downtime. I mean, in essence, it's a downtime move.
To rest.
For them to rest.
Yeah.
You're ruining people's memories here.
I feel like I did.
And there's no Santa Claus.
But I want it to be a realistic representation of what actually happened. So what you're saying is the case. So this is also why I say, well, the game is really made for you to run a territory long term, because that emotion that you talked about, you need to have in your head, because you've already ran 18 cards and you're working up. I'm in May right now in JCP 1986. I'm in May. I'm about to write a post probably this weekend where Jim Crockett is going to come out and announce the Great American Bash Tour, right? And I'm going to write that up for everybody to read. And I think what I have in mind for my Bash Tour is really cool, right? But I couldn't do it as like I think a lot of people take the game and they would like to play one match, but you're robbing yourself a little bit of the emotion of the long-term storyline that tells the story of how you got to that match. I still think it's a fun game, just playing Hogan and Andre or something like that.
And like you said, someone might play it out, like have their storylines. Someone might sit there and go, I want to do Andre the Giant against everybody.
And that's
I
fine.
do that with baseball where I don't card and dice. I don't play full seasons. I pick when I think of doing stuff in my head, I always think of I'm the circus promoter. I'm the boxing promoter. What would get me interested in seeing something? So I kind of like to do those too. But
agreed.
With my wrestling games, I actually do like a little story. I like the story in my head the way I want to do it. And when I stream them, I have a storyline. It's funny because I can remember it. My favorite thing to do is anyone who I thought they should have flipped, in my opinion, like Superstar Billy Graham. I've already flipped him. I'm like, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
I was talking to you about that before. Again, two of my favorite wrestlers, ironically, I love Bruno. I love Superstar Billy Graham, I got mad at Superstar when he beat Bruno, but I forgave him.
So let's say that you do a pay-per-view. One of the fun things is for you to figure out how you're actually going to turn San Martino and Graham at the same time in the main event.
I would never turn Bruno because I just couldn't.
But you could. And
now,
then you would have to think about how do I make this work for 6 months.
The good thing if you want to do something with Bruno is he was a very physical wrestler and he would choke you and this and that. So you could sit there and go, he would do some underhanded tactics if necessary.
Yeah.
So
but the whole reasoning is going to be the storyline. It's the why am I going to? It's the why is he going to turn for 6 months?
I can't do it. I can't.
Al, you can make Bruno like kind of like how they made Backlund, where he's kind of like he's doing things for the good, but he goes too far. You know what I mean? And it's like
I could do that.
Well, I really think the Steve Austin, that sort of anti-hero. Really, I love Austin, but
quickly
it made
with
it
Austin,
hard to be a heel or a face.
People. Well, I liked about Austin's last character gimmick. I hate saying, the way I think I like that because he'd wrestle anybody, and it would always annoy me when I was watching wrestling. I'm sitting there going, I'd like to see because sometimes I like to see that heel against that heel just because they're different managers and maybe there's a little beef or something. Or watch them wrestle.
Right.
Come to find out as years go on, they've wrestled each other. Because again, I'm a kid. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I'm not calling up. I'm not getting the dirt sheets. I'm not calling. Imagine that. What's this $100 phone bill here? I don't know, Dad. I called. I wanted to know the dirt sheets on wrestling.
I called the hotlines, man.
I called the hotline. But yeah, that's good stuff. Wrestling's fun. It's a fun thing.
It is fun, but it was a risk, and the game was a risk when you allow the gamer to have so much autonomy. The game is also extremely adaptable in so many ways to what you want to do.
Can I just go back to something? Because
sure.
You Sports Time Machine, our good friend Utah Mike. I want to make sure. He says I have one issue. Is that when you rolled for control and you roll the same dice, it says you go to the raffle chart. I'd rather have a momentum where someone who has it gets the roll on their chart. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I have no problem with that. I mean, it's very adaptable where there are matches I don't use the raffle chart at all. So here's how I basically decide how I'm going to play a card. So I have sort of 3 kinds of shows that I do. I don't really do television shows because it is sort of all squash matches. So I'll do what is called small house shows, large house shows, and then pay-per-views. So I'll do a show in Peoria, Illinois, and then I'll do a show in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then I'll do a show in Springfield, Illinois. All of those are small house shows. Then the main house show will be in Chicago or somewhere, or Indianapolis. So I usually do 5-match shows. That's just how I do it. If you'd like to do 10-match shows, that's fine too. I do 5 because for me, it works. So what happens is if it's a small house show and it's 5 matches, I will usually quick play the first 2 or 3 matches, and then I will sort of half play match number 4, which means I start them with lower power points, but the proportions remain the same.
Okay.
And then the main event is the only match I will play in whole from the beginning. In a larger house show, I may quick play 2 of the matches. I may half play 2 of the matches and then full play the main event. A pay-per-view, I always play the entire thing, full PowerPoints, full out. So it is adaptable in that way as well, where you don't have to necessarily take the amount of time that it would take to play. But unless it's the last 2 matches on a house show, I don't even use the wrestling raffle chart on ties. I will give the tie to whoever has, the most points remaining or whoever's ranked the highest, depending on where I think it would show. But I decide that at the beginning of the match, like what format I'm going to use. But he makes a good point. The dice for control started out with both guys having a 1d10. So what we had happen was, okay, so that's the backbone. That's the concept. That's not an absolute. It's not a commandment. So if it's a squash match, you can use a larger dice for the star and a much smaller die for, the guy that's being squashed, the talent that's being squashed. So that way the star will still dominate. If you want fewer ties, if you want to go to the wrestling raffle chart fewer times, less, and you want fewer ties, just use larger dice, because that'll mean fewer ties naturally, mathematically.
By mathematics, yeah.
Yeah, so you could do that as well. If you want it to just be a wild match where anything can happen, use a smaller die. You'll get a lot of ties, and you'll hit the wrestling raffle chart 5 to 10 times in the match. Anything can happen at that point. And at times, I like doing that as well. So you can really format the entire game the way that you would like to. I would say that the rules are a backbone, but it's a soft backbone that you can adapt to what you would like to do. And we should also talk about the rules as well, because it was a sticking point that you had, Al, right?
Right. Well, okay, and then I'm going to turn over to Pops because he has a lot of good things.
Oh, sure.
You can bring up about the game. No. Here, I'm going to be honest.
I'm a spectator here. I love hearing the talk.
No. I'm going to be honest. I was sent a copy of the game. What threw me off, again, it was a different way at looking at a game. I'm used to Sandy Koufax. I got to show Sandy. I love Sandy. But no, this is what, cards, like you pull your cards out and so when I got the thing and I had the PDF, thank you, you sent me, I'm looking at it, I'm looking at it, the rules to me. And you had mentioned this offline when Digital Dice with Dave Gardner and Ron Juckett did a thing about when you're reading something, sometimes when you don't understand it right away, you're like, and you put it aside.
Yeah, you put it to the side.
You put it,
and it's lost in the pile forever.
And I want to thank Pop's Review, and I'm going to turn it over to him because he's done a wonderful job explaining it. And I want you guys to have some banter back and forth. Like Pops, what you saw the game. What were your first thoughts? Let's have a little back and forth between you and ST Patrick, and I'll watch the chat to see if people are going to throw some questions out there regarding the game or about the Sports Sim magazine or about other things in general. But before that, are you a Cubs fan? Because you mentioned the Cubs. Are you a Cubs fan?
So I'm not sure if I should use the analogy that I use amongst friends to explain my history with the Cubs, but
Leon Durham ball through the leg.
I was a childhood Cubs fanatic, right?
Excellent.
Fanatic. I saw the opening night game at Wrigley Field. But I've always liked the Oakland A's as my AL team. As a young kid, I just probably liked the colors or something. I think
the colors are fascinating.
Do that. It's very important, actually. Yeah. And the Cubs, I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but I almost felt like a battered wife after a while, right? Like
the disappointment.
They would beat me down, and I would come back every year and say, but it'll be better next time. It'll be better next year. and it never was. And then I can remember one year they had Maddox, Pryor, and Kerry Wood.
Kerry Wood, when he came up, was
First
phenomenal.
3 pitchers on their rotation. It's when they got Maddox back after the Braves.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, it is going to be the year. I don't know what I was thinking. I said, it is going to be the year. By May, they were all injured.
Yeah.
And I
Kerry
was like, I'm filing the papers. It's over. This relationship is over.
Kerry Woods was phenomenal. Before we go back and forth with you and Pops, Philip Reynolds says, what is the most recent issue of Sports Sims magazine? The highest issue I see is on the site is issue 11.
It is issue 12. Hold on, let me make sure. I could be wrong because for the history magazine, it is issue 13. So I'm trying to get those correct.
I'm going to write that down because after we're going to talk some.
No, he's right. It's issue 11.
Issue 11 is the most recent.
Issue 12 is going to release in about 2 weeks maximum. Yeah, issue 11 is correct. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's correct. I think 12 early. So, but it is 11.
Well, wait, Brian, and then we're gonna Brian Hoxie. I've lived my whole life 90 minutes from Chicago. Been a Cubs fan my whole life. 1984, as a freshman in high school, nearly broke me. 2016.
Listen, I loved watching the Cubs beat the Indians. I loved it, but I loved it like I like watching an old girlfriend do well in life. Like, she's not my girlfriend anymore, right? But I loved it. I mean, and I was excited for Chicago. I was excited for all the fans. Right now, I would rather see Oakland do something, but boy, can I pick them, because Oakland today may be the sorriest franchise in sports, and they may also have the worst ownership at this point. So in a way, it's like, here we go again. I'm gonna have to go to counseling or something for this.
They might raise Charlie Finley from the dead to bring him back as an owner.
Oh my God. I hope they go to Vegas, but because it'll be easier for me to watch a game. I mean, I like going to Vegas, so it would be perfect. But
Football.
You know, modern sports, though, I think this is why we love these games, right? Because we can play any team at the height of how much we like them.
Yep.
As many times as we want.
People always say our hobby, it's nostalgia. No kidding.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'm glad it's nostalgia. Right? It's like why I like Stranger Things. Oh, it's very 80s. No kidding. I like it. I enjoy it. Yeah. It's something that brings back fond memories. But yes, that's an excellent point. Football, who do you like? If you're
the Bears. The Bears. The Bears and the Bulls, the Blackhawks. Yeah, Chicago still.
When you say Blackhawks, the first thing that pops into my head, Bobby Orr. I actually have a Bobby Orr. The only Bobby Orr card I have is him with the Blackhawks. And
I'm actually in Auburn, Indiana right now. I'm actually in northeastern Indiana. I'm an Illinoisan by birth, but I was, for all the Illinoisans out there, was born down by Carbondale, Illinois, which is at the bottom of the state, as opposed to Chicago, which is at the northeastern part of the state. So I was about as far from Chicago as you can be, but you still felt the Chicago sports fandom thing. But an absolutely huge Illini fan still. Yeah.
All right, Pops review.
Pops.
Well, first off, again, I just want to say, Mr. Patrick, thank you again for making this game and the inspiration you had with your friends in that. And, you're talking about charting moves first off, because I don't know if people really understand what you do to chart moves, right? So maybe if you could go through that process, maybe that
Yeah, great. Thank you. What I try to do, I'm not technically OCD, but I'm very much so about charting these moves. I want the move sets in the game to be accurate, 100% accurate. So if it's on tape, I chart it. And charting it means I write down every move. And I write down if it's in the ring or if it's outside the ring. And I write down if it's in a stipulation match, what happens in that match. And I write down, there are multiple factors that I'm writing down all the time, that I have notebooks and notebooks and notebooks, because it ends up being every territory has its own personality. Right. And I want that personality to explode through the books when you play the game. I want it to feel like you're there in the territory, in the year, in the time period. So I actually chart every single show that I can find. Now, it helps that when the internet kind of came on the scene around 94 in college, I was one of those guys who would go online and find a bunch of people like myself and trade VHS tapes. Mm. So I was that guy with hundreds of VHS tapes, right? So it started there, but things have become a lot easier over the years. But I'm glad I have them because I converted all of them, to external drives over the years. So I still have all the material. So it's very helpful in being able to chart multiple shows. Now, like I explained earlier, when you're charting Texas, when you're charting Dallas, you really only have one weekly show to chart. When it gets to Nitro and Raw, you probably have 13 to 14 hours per company a week that have to be charted. And I promise you, I will chart the least important show of all of them, because if I don't, I would feel like I'm not doing the charts right. I would feel like they're not accurate move sets. Because what if a wrestler loses a bunch of matches on Nitro, but he wins his matches on the least important show, right? I feel like I owe it to him to get those wins in, like to be on the charts as well. And so I literally, now the good part of that is I can promise you it's accurate. The bad part of that is I can promise you it's accurate.
And that's a good point too, because Al knows too, like we play, I'm just gonna say, like, we played the Phil Singer game because that's really the next game that's
excellent game.
Has the real wrestling.
It's
a great game, right?
Yep.
And then of course they have their own charts too, but some of the moves on the charts sometimes where it's like, do you pick a guy doing a moonsault, or do you pick a guy doing a death jump or something like that? And it's like, oh man, like Hacksaw Jim Duggan's gonna do a moonsault. I don't remember Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So and there's ways to go around that, obviously.
No, there are games that have parts of games, that are, just fantastic.
Right.
Even Hafner back in the day had a game that was fantastic. It was a great wrestling game. My problem was the same issue. It would be Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant, and I would have the option of doing like a top rope pile driver. And I'm like, is it Andre or Hulk that's going to be doing a top rope pile driver? Right? It just didn't make any sense whatsoever. And so I think more modern games, what they would do is they would either shrink the move sets, or they would have a generic move set, and then everybody might have a couple special moves that they did. And that's fine too, because you just want to have fun and you want to do certain things, right? There are certain games that do certain things. I play multiple baseball games. I play multiple basketball games. I play multiple football games because they all do something that I want.
Scratch a different itch.
In a certain time. Yes, exactly. And so, but we wanted to be the kind of Strat Appa, not in size, but just in detail. We wanted to give you that sort of total immersion into the territory in the time period. Here's a great example of that. I've told everybody on the Delphi page as well, which is also in the show notes.
Yes.
By the way, for everyone out there, there are some fantastic guys to help you also at the Delphi page. I can't say enough about those guys. Awesome guys. But I've told them, I said, when we get into the 90s, some things are going to change, right? Because the sport changes. So the entire run that I charted in Dallas, we had under 100 moves outside the ring in total. The entire era. Under 100 moves occurred outside the ring. They didn't go outside the ring.
Yes.
They just didn't. I charted one pay-per-view of the Attitude Era that had almost 200 moves outside the ring. One pay-per-view. So the structure has to change as well a little bit. So I kind of like that we started with the 1980s because for me, it's normal. It's the box. It's very normal. Before we get wacky, why don't we learn normal?
Yes.
And then wacky will kind of make a little more sense. Going outside the ring, hardcore matches. How do I use a trash can? How do I use a chair? How do I go outside of the complex and do a pile driver on the hood of a car? Like, how do we get to that point if we don't know what normal is?
Right.
So charting the 1980s has allowed us to sort of set a baseline of normalcy, which I've actually enjoyed a lot.
So that it's going to lead me. Now that's going to lead me to my next question about the moves because, obviously you have managers in your game, and I emailed you about this and that. So there's managers that you can use in the game, Al. You can use your favorite manager, and but the thing is to use the managers is that they were charted at say like a 1 to 2% on the actual wrestler's chart.
Yeah.
So, so say if Rick Rude was wrestling and Bobby Heenan's outside the ring, there's a chance Rick Rude doesn't even use Bobby Heenan in a match, which could happen if he was wrestling, say, on a
it happened a lot
wrestling or something like that. Or so I'm just wondering, like, how did that come about? Because even if he gets to the cheat on the chart, then the manager still has to roll a 1 or 2 to get in to cheat. Otherwise, he's not even.
No, you're right. You're right. Well, part of that is a balancing act that I kind of had to figure out as well. Because what happens is when you go to the raffle chart, the manager can actually be a pretty big part of the match in the raffle chart. And so to offset that a little bit, the actual manager involvement on the sheets had to be a little lower so that it sort of is a balancing act. But I loved your idea so much that I'm adapting it. Like, well, that's going to be, here's what I do, Al. Honestly, I'm no expert. I just love this game, right?
Yeah. But so, I think that's wonderful that Pops, Asim, Pops Review, check out his YouTube channel, link provided on the page in the chat. All the links for the discussion points are in the chat and on the page where you get the Sports Sim magazine, the wrestling game, Squared Circle. I just want to keep saying that.
Yes.
But that's the wonderful thing. You had the back and forth. I've beta tested some games. I've been on some teams, Glory Days Boxing, Pro Strategy Football, and the receptiveness of when you throw an idea out, that you're receptive to that because it might make, maybe it's something you didn't think of and someone just looking at it differently.
That's just sometimes there might be fresh eyes or something.
Yeah.
Like that, right?
But I want to ask one quick thing because I remember how many, just for the people to know, how many territory books are available at the moment and what are they?
So Jim Crockett Promotions from 1986 is the one we started with. We only did 1 year because I wanted the core rule book to be a pretty small time period.
Yep.
And for me, it's the max out year. It's the year and the territory that I liked the most in my lifetime. So that is why we started with that. We did the New York territory from 85 to 90. We ended that in April of 90 when Hogan gets pinned at WrestleMania by Ultimate Warrior. That was my last match. So we did AWA, and we did Dallas. And I think those are the 4 that are out.
So you have WWF 85 to 90.
85 to 90.
AWA, what year range is that?
71 or so to like early 88.
Nice.
But it's really 80s because there was not a lot of chartable shows, but I still charted who I could. I should also explain here.
A lot of talent. A lot of talent in the AWA. My
God.
God.
A lot.
And you have
tag teams, believe it or not.
Yeah. You have Crockett, which is would be NWA.
Yeah. Here's how you make the book. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to explain this to everyone. Mainly, I have to chart you doing 100 moves. As a tag team, I have to chart you doing 20 tag team moves. But as a singles, I have to chart you doing 100 moves. If you don't get to 100 moves, you're not in the book. So now, 100 moves doesn't sound like a lot. If in a squash match, you might do 5 to 10 moves. Suddenly now you have to get in at least 10 matches. Again, it doesn't sound like a lot. It can be for some guys in smaller territories who were just in for a couple weeks and then out and you never heard from them again in the territory. That's why we basically do it like that. Okay. Tag teams as well.
So 4 territory books.
Yeah.
Crockett, which is NWA.
Yeah.
AWA. WWF.
Yeah. And
World Class Dallas.
World Class Dallas with the Von Erich. That's the Von Erichs and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yep. Thank the chase for the Von Erichs. That whole territory is about how do you beat the Von Erichs. It's really its own storyline, and which is interesting because I like to sort of figure out how to design the territory outside the Von Erichs, because like that's a challenge. That's a real challenge with that territory, and it's pretty cool actually. I actually like Dallas. Yeah, it's cool.
Quick question from Mark Ferguson. I'm just going to read it out.
Yes.
Any chance for women and or midget edition?
The first part, yes. The last part, no. I just, there's so much stuff to chart. I just can't bite the butt for an hour as a move. You know, I just can't do midget stuff. And I just don't know if it would be a large enough roster, even if I did, unless I extended it.
Could you do them as special attractions?
I could do a special attraction, and I wouldn't mind doing that at some point. The women we're actually going to do 2 books, okay? And it's going to be cut at the year 2000, at January 1, 2000. We're going to basically do everything before that and everything after that. And it's all going to be tied into one. That is we're probably a year and a half to 2 years away from that, because I want to get to where we actually have the Raw era, the Nitro era, all of this stuff. But because I'm going outward from the 80s, we're kind of going in order in both directions. So yeah, go ahead.
How long does it take you to do a book, a file, a time period?
The goal is always 3 months, but usually around 5.
Okay.
Because you're almost doing it in real time. I mean, you're kind of skipping the advertisements in the show, and you're kind of skipping the schedule, announcement of the schedule.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, that's a good point, but to create, like, how many, do you say I'm going to create 1 a year, 2 a year?
No, I would love to do 3 or 4 a year.
Okay.
Is the goal. But each of them being about 3 months to create. But I can tell you that, so I work on the current territory that I'm doing at work every day with everything else. I have about 2 hours a day where I work on the current territory. At night, at home, especially if the wife is doing other things,
right,
I will work on a territory in the future that has so much content that it could take a couple years.
Wow.
To actually chart the whole thing.
And your next project, from what I hear, is the Memphis project, right?
Yes,
Pretty much.
going down to Tennessee.
I know a lot of guys are anxious for that. Where do you see that right now? How much at a percentage? What would you say it's at right now? Just so people are aware. Or
I would say about 3 weeks. Here's the problem. So the problem there isn't the charting. The problem there are actually the pictures. So as I chart, I have to take screenshots because pictures just aren't available of all these guys. Yeah. I mean, sure, you have pictures of Lawler and Idol and Dundee and Jos LeDuc and all of these guys, but you don't have pictures of, the bottom half of the roster. Mm-hmm. So I have to screenshot them, and then you'll notice I kind of cartoonize the pictures a little bit so that they aren't pure pictures. They're a little cartoonish, just slightly. Yeah. I kind of do that as well. And so that's a process. So it's really not the charting. Like, the charting has been done. It is the pictures and then putting it all into the book. So I'm going to guess as well 2 to 3 weeks and it'll be out. And then we go to Bill Watts after that. So
look out.
We go to New Orleans and we go to Oklahoma. So we're going to basically do Watts 81 through around 88. Then for Al, we are going after Bill Watts. We're going back up to New York for the pre-Hulkamania book. So it is basically everything before 1985. Before 1984.
Are you able maybe to do older Bruno as like a one-off sheet kind of thing to kind of like how if you have to make an errata kind of thing?
Yeah. Why don't I take the chart that I have and make him a special attraction?
Because that might bring Al into the game.
I still have the moves.
I'm going to actually get with Pop's review on like this offline at some point, and he's going to walk me through. He's done great tutorials, so I highly recommend check. Again, I told you this. I said this to ST Patrick before he came on here.
3 weeks. I'm going to say it's about 3 weeks, David.
For Memphis, 3 weeks, David.
Approximately.
Hopefully
before.
The game plays logical. Yeah. And I know wrestling's fake. I get that. I'm saying it played the way, and you can play the game whatever way you want once you buy a game.
Listen, you can take any drama on television and turn it into a realistic RPG in some kind of way, because it's all math. But the math should still be real.
And another thing too, like, when you buy a game, it's your game essentially. You know what I mean? Like you're the creator and you made a great game, right? Yeah. But if you buy a game, it's your game. So then you could house rule however you want and make it as comfortable or as hard or whatever easy as you want. And so I think like even just playing the other day, and I think the guy that made the first video about your game, he had implemented a momentum system.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, because you talk about, we roll the dice, even on D20s, you can still get ties on the wrestling raffle chart. Even that it happens, right?
Yeah.
So I was implementing a momentum system with just like a 6-sided dice, and whoever gets the advantage, if they could chain a few moves together, then that would add up towards their control roll kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then I had the match with Orndorff and Hogan, and Orndorff was just destroying Hogan. He brought him all the way down, and I kind of thought,
well, didn't he not wrestle him in Toronto?
Yeah,
at the big show,
wasn't it Hogan? And he was doing a job on him, and Hogan came back.
That
and
was
beat him.
1986, I think.
I just watched that
in Toronto,
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, it's going to be 81 through very, very early 88.
Yeah,
and 81 through 88, David.
And then, early 88, very
early 88.
So, and then the solo promoter actually had an idea. I'm going to give him credit too, that he was saying with the momentum dice, maybe keep it to like a 3 and not a 6. So then
the momentum thing is that momentum idea is hard for me because the momentum has to be able to change on a dime in wrestling.
Yeah.
And when it usually changes is when a person tries to do a move of some kind and it fails, right? And because we don't actually have any failed moves in the game, they sort of all succeed. The momentum, the thing that changes the most, the thing that changes the momentum the most is not really a part of the game. Yeah. Now, the reason why we do that is because, so when you roll for control, it tells you who's doing the next move. Mm-hmm. What it doesn't tell you, and what we have to assume, is
how they got there.
There's some stuff happening between the moves. Yeah. You know, some jockeying, some grappling, some rolling around on the ground. I might be mad as a heel. I might leave the ring, walk around the heel. You know, I think Macho Man would always leave the ring and walk around, and then everybody would be hollering at him to get back in the ring, right? That stuff you have to assume is all happening between the control rolls. So that's why it's also hard to do time as well, because it's not always equal.
Right.
It's not a certain amount of moves equals a certain amount of time, because that's not really what's happening necessarily. So I just decided to leave out they're rolling around on the ground for 2 minutes because they're tired. It's a rest period. Yeah. I left out the rest periods for the most part. In the raffle chart, every so often you'll get, you know, they're grappling on the ground. It takes up 8 moves or something.
Yeah.
You'll get that. But I decided to leave out all of the failed stuff, the jockeying, the rolling around on the ground. I'm going to leave the ring for a moment, get my breath. So what the controls do is it takes you to the next move that's going to do damage.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Al, before I call your game more of a simulation, right? Because there are other games out there. You play them, like you said, they have like quick moves, and boom, you got to your finisher, like you're saying. But this is more of a simulation of sorts, right? So there has to be a little more patience kind of thing to play it, but also it's realistic to what like the matches that you watched, right? That we watched as, you know, growing up, right? So it's kind of like, I compare it kind of like to a, you know, you have other games that are like a TV show, and then you have then you have a game that's like a movie. You know, they both can be great, but it depends on the time period that you have to watch, right, or play.
And look, I've had some bad cards, but you know what? If you watch any of the MSG cards in the 1980s, there are some bad cards, some fantastic cards, and there are a lot of average cards.
Yeah.
You almost have to learn to love the process and not necessarily focus so much on the result. I love how we get there. I say this all the time as well. I said, if you're doing a baseball season, it's 162 games. How many of those do you think are great? I mean, great games, like out of its world. And, you know, not a lot of them. Maybe 10 to 12 games are just out of this world. Phenomenal. The rest, you just love the process. Like, you love the game.
Right.
Like, you love writing down your lineup and imagining Tommy Herr or John Tudor or whoever in your mind. I mean, you just love the process. And so you do sort of have to get used to it being process and not always about the result.
Dwayne Mart's YouTube network asks, can you explain the difference between hard and soft?
I absolutely can. The ebooks are PDF files. So they will come to you via a computer. Hard and soft, if you just give me 1 second, I'll be right back.
Absolutely. These books are beautiful. Because I've seen, I think Pops, you have a couple, you have some.
I have the hardcovers,
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
Yes, they are.
And I believe Mr. Patrick is going to go grab some. The Pops. Oh, he's got it.
Okay. Hardcover is as it says. It's a hard.
You can use that as a foreign weapon.
A foreign object.
It is a hardcover.
Yes.
They all look, I'm sorry, somewhat like this.
Yep. Let me. You know what? Let me. Can I do this? Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. No.
The soft is a soft cover. It's just like this.
Yeah.
It's a soft cover book.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I always get the hardcover, and it's my own game. And like, I still buy the hardcover because I like it on a shelf. But I also have the PDFs, and the PDFs are sort of meant for you to sort of print out and write all over and make notes and have ideas and jot down a bunch of stuff. That's the idea. And then if you need the sheet again, you just redo it. So if you're asking me, as I get asked often, should I buy the PDFs or should I buy the book? Help me, Hasim, because like I
was saying,
I don't know.
Like, I was saying in my videos,
advantages to both.
I mean, to start the game, I would just get the PDFs because you could print them out and play it and all that. But I think when if you truly want to be a collector, then invest in a soft cover or hardcover to put on your shelf, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But I just went out and I bought the hardcovers right away because I love hardcover books. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
Well, I saw our good friend Mr. Utah Mikey. It's a big footprint if you're gonna play it. What are your thoughts on that, ST?
For me, it's usually not. So if I'm going to use the PDFs, I'll usually have the two guys on my computer screen.
Yep.
Or I'll use like the sign holders that you can spin. And so I'll have them like right here and right here. And then, the raffle charts and stuff, I usually just have them all in one stack. And then I have one piece of a paper right here just to do the PowerPoint. So
and I'm just old school, so I just have papers and
yeah, I mean,
and that's
I'm
just
kind of
me.
organized. So I have the guys here, I have the stack of charts here, and I have a score sheet here.
Yeah.
And for me, that's all I have out. So
Thomas Morgan, before we get back to Pops and you just riffing off each other, are you doing early 80s NWA? You're eventually, are you going that way?
Thomas, excellent question. The question I get asked most is, are you going to do so-and-so territory and so-and-so era and so-and-so country? The answer for all of those are yes. Everything that we can chart, everything that we have tape for, everything that can be found and watched and charted is going to eventually get done. And we're kind of moving outward from the 1980s in both directions. So it's going to be kind of done in those orders as well. When we do pre-Hulkamania New York, which will encompass sort of everything before 1984, which is going to be a fun territory. It is going to be cool.
Will you have Buddy Rogers?
If I can find enough matches to where he gets 100 moves.
Okay.
But I mean, you're still talking about Backlund, who was, the champion,
Billy Graham,
3 to 5 years. Graham, Pedro Morales, peak Andre the Giant. So the Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
I
saw. You know what?
It's going to be phenomenal.
Because you bring up Andre the Giant. There's a match. He's wrestling in Europe, France. I probably was France, but he's doing arm drag takedowns. He's selling. He's bumping.
Surprisingly,
he's very young, and they did it again. Here's the beauty of the old days, and I never had seen. I was like, they did it like it was a sport, meaning, and they had it was a little different. They had a break. They had a round. It looked like a round. But that's the most I've ever seen him move. And then his matches in Japan with Stan Hansen are just, I still have that link saved because it's an incredible match. So
no, here's the irony of that. So we have a thing in the game, Pops knows this, called the Andre chart, right? The Andre chart is for how you handle huge immobile guys. And I named the chart after Andre the Giant, because from 85 to 90, he was a huge, relatively immobile guy.
Yep.
So the irony is that when we do Andre in Japan, he probably will not qualify for the Andre chart.
Watch some of those matches.
Because he was mobile. I can tell you this. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, and Abdullah were incredibly agile for big
Absolutely.
guys. Incredibly agile. I mean, they could take almost anything that you would do in the ring, so they don't qualify for the Andre chart. Uncle Elmer, he can't even stand up if he gets knocked down late in his career. So he qualifies.
Haystacks Calhoun.
Yeah. So he qualifies. So it's a way to where I didn't want Rey Mysterio Jr. to be able to do a Hurricane Rana to Andre the Giant.
Not going to work.
90, right?
Not going to work.
It just doesn't work out. So you can't just use Andre and Rey's own sheets. So the Andre chart serves as a move set when you face a large immobile guy.
Will there be a pin save chart for any matches?
There will be for managers and for tag team partners. It's going to come into play. Pops had a wonderful idea that I'm going to incorporate. Listen, I like all of your ideas out there, everyone out there, so much that I started with the AWA book. I have 2 or 3 pages in there that are homebrews.
Oh, cool.
Ideas that you guys had, that I write them all down and I type them up. And for 2 or 3 pages in the book, I say, here's what some guys are doing to handle this. If you would like to do it, I think it's a cool idea. If you don't. They're just options. I like options. And I'll say this 100 times. I want it to be adaptable for whatever you want to do with the game. And I want it to work for you in your territory. I think we talked about this as well before. There's going to be a random angle generator coming, I think, 2 books away, which will handle if you want in your territory an angle to happen before the match or after the match. The raffle chart is really an angle generator in the match. So it's already there. But it's going to be for helping you build angles before and after matches. So it's going to be there as well. So I'm completely open to ideas, and I will probably continue to have 3 or 4 homebrew pages in each book that are just ideas that you guys had that I think are stellar.
And again, ST Patrick's email provided in the chat at the top and on the video page if you want to contact him and have questions. Let's get back to Pops and St. ST riffing, and I have a couple more questions later on that I'll when you guys have a lull.
I want to give a shout out to Mr. Dave Little, because he said he met you at one of the Play Now conventions.
Play.con. In July. It's going to be awesome again. Can't wait to go.
Yeah, and he
was good Dr. David Little.
Yes, and he was just in awe, or he really loved your battle royal. So I just want to talk about that. Like, where was your inspiration come from to have that battle royal and even Royal Rumble? Did you make that your own, or like how did that come about? Because we've seen some other guys play some battle royals in some other games, and it takes them like days almost, I think, to finish a battle royal. So
I don't know if I've ever told you this before. I don't know if I've ever told anyone this before. It came from auto racing, right? So I made up this really small auto racing game years ago where it's the same concept, same exact concept. You go by round, right? And you sort of roll, and you have a modifier. Your driving ability that year, you have a modifier. And so you roll each round. And so you add up round by round what you've scored, and it's the spot you are in the race, right? And you move up and down the race, right? the person who has the last roll either has car problems, or they spin out, or they have an accident. If you're at the bottom. When I was trying to figure out a battle royal that was not the one that we used in junior high school, because that was terrible. I mean, we're what, 13? I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
I said, man, I bet you could use that auto racing game that I made as the battle royal, because it's the same concept. You're going to have a modifier, and you roll each round. And so the person who has the highest score is going to throw out the one with the lowest score.
Mhm.
If two people tie at the lowest in that time period, in that round, he throws them both out. It doesn't have to be at the same time.
Yeah.
Or you could say that the top two scores throw out the bottom two scores, however you want to do it. And then you keep throwing guys out round by round until you're down to the last two guys.
Mhm.
And then there is a save opportunity in the last round when you're down to two guys, because you have to meet a certain threshold to be thrown out at that point.
Mhm.
So if you still get a higher roll, you kind of save yourself
Mhm.
at the end of the battle royal. So that's the concept. With the Royal Rumble, it's the same concept except for the entry points.
Yeah.
So after 8 or 9 guys are in the ring, you can start throwing people out, unless they roll ones, which you can get thrown out early if you roll a 1.
Mhm.
If you roll the bottom number. So it came from auto racing. And for anybody out there who wants to just take it and turn it into auto racing, it's the same concept. Everybody that year has a modifier, and you just keep adding the points round by round, and whoever is the highest is going to be at the lead of the race.
Mhm.
Game. That's the whole game. Kind of cool. I love battle royals. I love the Royal Rumbles. I don't do battle royals often because I'm not a believer, and I've said this before, and I know it's the opposite of what most people do. I wish, and again, it's your game. Pops is right. Do whatever you want.
Mhm.
I wish you wouldn't open up the book and do Hulk and Andre right off the bat. As the first match, before you really know the game.
Yeah.
I would love for you to build towards Hulk and Andre for 6 months. And by the time that you make it there, it's monumental.
Yeah.
And it's important. And you know the details of the game. And you can come on the forum and write about, I wanted to play Hulk and Andre so bad. I finally got there. Here's how it all broke down. Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, look, I understand excitement. I understand you want to pull out the game, and right away you want to do Macho Man and Steamboat, or you want to do the Rock and Roll Express against the Midnight Express. I get it. I do.
Yeah.
I would probably do that too. But there's some kind of cool thing about really developing your storylines that is so much fun, and it's so rewarding in the end, that I don't think doing a one-off match, it can be a cool match and you can feel it's a cool match by how it's going.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's not as cool as the end of a storyline,
Right.
as a blow-off match,
Right.
as the end of a storyline match, as a thing that changes your entire territory.
Mhm.
That's an awesome feeling, and it's one that I hope all of you have, because it's awesome.
Quick question for both of you, and I'll start with Hasim, our good friend Pops Review. Please check out his channel. Lots of cool stuff on there. If you want to know,
thank you for my subscribers, because the last time we had talked out, I was just struggling to get to 100, and now I'm just over 200. So thank you guys for subscribing and following my channel.
Always a gentleman, a wonderful channel, always pleasant to listen to. Here's one thing. How do you go about, Hasim, setting up your game? Meaning, you use the PDF. Can you, or do you want to walk through this a little later? I just to show people, because again, for me, right, when I looked at it, I was like, how am I going to set this up? Meaning, like I'm looking at it. How did you go about when you decided I want this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you go about teaching it yourself? There was something said regarding baseball games, right? It was Tony Porter, and it was, well, and I don't know if someone else said it too, but he made sense. Before you try to do, like, say, advanced portion or super event, learn to play the game the basic way and then go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you, Hasim, when you got your book, what did you do?
Well, the first thing was, I'm a bit of a visual learner, so
Yep, me too.
The guy who made the video, Mr. Wrestling, I think his name was, on YouTube.
Oh yeah, Mr. Wrestling.
Yeah,
Mr. Wrestling too.
Yeah, Mr. Wrestling too. So he made a video, but he didn't show the game. Like, he has like a kind of a graphic on, and then he's kind of telling you what he's doing. And I got it from that, right? I kind of got it. Okay, it's about control rolls and going back and forth a bit and stuff like that. And whatever your guy rolls, you look it up, and if he goes to the charts, right? I got it from that. So when initially I bought the hardcovers. I'm like, okay, now I'm invested in this. Let me get the books. I kind of saw the game before, but I was getting, we were starting to get into the Phil Singer game a little more, so. It kind of went out of my mind, and then I saw Al playing Chris's card and wrestling dice game.
And again, it's a wonderful free game.
Yeah,
it plays like APA. It's funny you said you wanted to be the APA strat. That game, I call it APA wrestling because it play. And again, I've never played APA baseball, but I've watched it. And I'm sitting there going, well, and it makes sense. It's a fun game.
Yeah,
and it was my entry level game into wrestling games, because since then I've purchased a few wrestling games, and I intend to purchase a couple of books from you, PDF, and it's just easier for me to do it. But I like the whole. I probably will at some point get a hardcover, because, like you said, it's just a nice thing to have. I might not get all of them, but the certain ones I want, I might get.
Yeah.
Probably. So I'm sorry. Continue.
So then I was doing a search again for that game, and then I came across Mr. Patrick's game, Mr. St. Patrick. I call him.
Yeah, that's what he kept.
I call it.
What does the ST stand for?
The ST is actually my name. It goes back to childhood. It was just it's just like JC or
Gotcha.
JD or something like. It is real. I mean,
not Steven, but Sarah Patrick.
I mean, it's not a gimmick.
From parts unknown.
I mean, I'm not a heel. It's not a gimmick. No, it is real. It's just what I've been called since I was a kid.
Oh, that's fine. I just wanted to ask that. Let me spring this one on him.
Yeah. No, it's. And I mean by the APA strat, I don't mean it plays like APA.
No, but you wanted it to be.
I just wanted it to be.
No, I don't
have a detailed backbone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So go on, Hasim.
Yeah, no. So then I came across. I see the core book for the Squared Circle, and then I see that there's other territories. So then I was like, well, okay, now what is this really about? Because I see there's a WWF and AWA and all that type of stuff. So I was like, well, let me get into these, and let's see what this is about. So, all I did was just read what Mr. Patrick put in his book. It wasn't complicated at all. It was just, again, rolling some D10s or 20s against each other and just looking up the moves. And I thought, well, it's not that hard, really, to be honest, but to set it up, I think the initial process, like if someone was going to buy it, don't buy, like, as much as I want you to buy a hardcover for Mr. Patrick and give him money and stuff like that, it's easier to set up the PDF, print it out, and then play the game that way, get your dice and all that, and then when you feel comfortable and you're like, this is a great game, let me get the hardcover of this or whatever, then do that, right? Mm-hmm. But I went and I printed off I got the PDFs too, so I went and I printed off the sheets and stuff like that, and I'm not someone who. I'm not intimidated to, make my table covered with pages and all this kind of stuff. Like, I know it looks bad, maybe as a bad footprint and stuff like that. But if you're invested in the game, like, you'll just do whatever to play the game. I
thought your setup was good.
Great, yeah, I know, but I know for some, because obviously, again, we'll go back to Phil saying they make the nice cards and the art and all this type, and it's a really nice footprint that they have as well, right? But you know, he has the full moves and charts, and to see that, you know, Hulk Hogan had his own Hulk Up page and all this, and Andre the Giant chart, I was like, hey, let me print this up. I gotta get this game, you know. So
yeah, you know, the Hulk Up thing is cool. The Hulk Up page had to happen because he does the moves in an order, right?
Yeah.
And so you needed to be able to do them in an order.
See, and then I'd ask you about the Hulk Ups, because what I wanted was that, you know, Hogan, he has it again listed as his moves as a Hulk Up, you know, way down in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, obviously Hogan would kick out if someone did their finisher, he would kick out of that. So I was wanting a mechanic to, like, at least if the guy has an asterisk, Hogan gets to roll a free Hulk Up, and then if he had 2 asterisks, he gets to roll twice to see if he hulks up, and if he doesn't, then
that's not a bad idea either.
Or whatever, you know.
That's kind of why you'll notice that at the bottom of every page is an area where I can write notes.
Yeah.
And so when I was doing the Nature Boy, for example, when I was doing Ric Flair, I said there has to be a way for his opponent to reverse the figure 4.
Yeah.
Which happens in almost every match.
Yeah.
So I kind of wrote a little note at the bottom of his sheet so that everybody would be able to you know, reverse it if they want to reverse it.
Yes.
So you're right about Hogan, and that's why you also have writing space at the bottom. I would absolutely write that in, and then you and I are also able to email, so we can email something that I can also add to the homebrew pages.
Yeah.
Because that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
We
should talk about the rules, though. We should talk about the rules because for some people they are a problem. And I know that Al said he saw the book, he saw the pages, and said, "Oh gosh." Right?
No, but the thing of the book, you know, the thing of the book is it's not overwhelming. It seems like overwhelming because
I'm actually looking at it, and I want, if it's okay, I want to show when you're done, when you're ready, because I'm going to get it.
Absolutely.
I got to remember how to share the screen.
I would like to explain why the rules are the way they are. If you allow me to. So when I wrote the rules, wrestling.
Can I guess though first before you? Can I take a guess?
Sure.
The way I kind of guessed that you guys played was like, because you said you had that Dungeons and Dragons background, right?
Yeah.
And when you play, like, say, a video game, or even if you watch wrestling, it's kind of like a back and forth. It's not like one guy just dominating roll after roll, and then the other guy just sitting there like, oh, is it my turn? Or, you know, I kind of had that feeling. Is it something from that inspiration, or?
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, when we first made the game, we would actually have a person running the territory. So one guy was the dungeon master, right?
Yeah.
And he would be the guy that you would talk to privately and say, look, I'm going to heel turn on my partner this match.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen at this point. So how do you want to do it? How do I need to do it? Let's work this out, right?
Yeah.
And it was always in the Cow Palace. That there was always a turn in the Cow Palace for some reason. No explanation for that, but it just was our thing.
Yeah.
So you always knew we're going back to the Cow Palace. There's going to be a heel turn, right?
Yeah.
But we got out of that because the game has to be able to be played solitaire. So that's why you sort of do your own moves now and your own charts and stuff. But when I wrote the rules, I didn't just want to explain the game. I wanted to explain why the rules are the way they are. I wanted to explain the wrestling reason why Tim Horner, who's a really good wrestler, really good mat wrestler, does not have more PowerPoints than Hulk Hogan. I didn't just, want to just write down their PowerPoints. I needed the reader, I needed the gamer to understand that what you're playing is a kayfabed game of wrestling, in a sense that Hulk Hogan is obviously going to have more PowerPoints, than Tim Horner. Tim Horner is, yes, technically a much more accomplished mat wrestler than Hulk Hogan. anybody almost is a more accomplished mat wrestler than Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant.
But they don't got that charisma, brother.
Yeah.
Which he stole from superstar Billy Graham.
Or so I
Rest
wanted
his
to
soul.
explain why with every rule. I want to explain here's why this is the way it is. In hindsight, I would have not explained the whys so much until I got the email or the post or the question. I would have just made them much shorter and just here's the facts, man. You know, just the rules, just the facts. But it was so important for me, for everyone to understand the mindset of the rules, to understand the process of the rules, to understand the thinking of the rules.
Do you have a condensed version now of the rules?
Yes. So I have these files that I call a care package, which are, you know, a few articles that I've written about the game and the shorter rules and a few things that I've updated and are fixed and all these things. If anybody wants the care package, please email me and ask for the care package. Happy to send that along.
And the email is in the chat at the top and on the page. It's probably easier to find it on the page because we've had a lively chat.
Yeah.
His email links to the Sports Sim magazine and the game. Yeah. Also, Pops Reviews link to his wonderful YouTube channel. So please check those all out.
More than happy to do that. So with the rules being a little longer, it looks like it's more daunting. But as Pops explained, it's really not a hard game. But if you just flip through the pages real fast, it looks complicated. But it's really not. I mean, it's really roll for control, roll the move, take off the PowerPoints. If it's a tie, you go to the raffle chart. Now, everything else extends from that point.
Right.
Everything else happens around that. And you can decide what you want to add and subtract.
And one thing I had to give him props for, too, that he did was he has a out of the ring chart. And I was saying sometimes with some of the other wrestling game, like, you throw a guy out of the ring, they do something, boom, they're back in the ring. Yeah. But there was actually one thing on the chart where it's like they were still outside the ring. So I had to roll again. I don't know if you made that on purpose or not. Or,
yes.
Yeah. And I thought that was so cool because they're still outside the ring fighting. You have to roll again outside the ring, you know?
Yeah. There's always a chance that they're going to stay outside the ring and
count it out.
Either they'll both be counted out or one guy will barely make it back in, not be counted out. Or
DQ,
or you know, there's even a chance that you know a heel's just going to walk off and say, "I've had enough."
Ernie left.
It's over for tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm heading out of here.
Every ending, believe this. Every ending that seems like it's not a satisfactory ending is an opportunity for you as a storyteller to make it awesome. Down the road, at the next house show, at the house show down the line. The way I sort of schedule about a month in advance, but I leave spots open in those cards because things are going to happen the month before where I need to add a match, where I need to add in something.
Very cool.
So I leave spots open the month in advance so that I can have an ongoing storyline.
Al, you're missing out, my friend. You got to.
But making an opportunity.
You're gonna give me a private tutorial.
Yes.
Every time that you say I played 30 minutes of a main event and it ends up being a double count out, I hate that. Try to use that. Try to use that to further your storyline. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what the game, especially a wrestling game.
Yes.
It's a storytelling game.
Yes.
I like how you've compared it to Pops Review, like because you came from the Dungeons and Dragons background. Again, it's storytelling, it's immersion, it's your imagination. My one thing was question. On the card, you have all the moves, but you don't have the stamina points. You actually have that in a different portion or a different chart, a list. I'm sorry.
Right.
Was there any thought process that going forward, maybe? Would it and again, now that I know there's a chart, you can actually see it. You look okay, but maybe What was the thought process there? Not to have the
because
point? I get
because they only last until you have a match, and then they change. So
right, because you're getting they're reduced.
Yeah, depending on if you lose a match or if you win the match, it could go up or down.
So like a career mode.
Sorry,
I didn't understand that. See, okay, I got you.
And that's why I kind of call this game like it's like a living wrestling game because you have
so
ups and downs.
I learned something. I thought, so I'm just because I'm looking at a card. The wrestler is Hulk Hogan. He has X amount of points, hit points, we'll say, stamina points. Now that could go down for the next match, or like say
if he loses,
if he loses, say he loses 3 in a row because of whatever reason. So when he comes in for that grudge match, his stamina points are not most likely going to be the same.
Right.
Well, I did not know that. Now I understand a little.
I think Hogan starts at 1,000, right?
Yes,
I believe. Well, Pops would know better than I do.
Because you have him as champ, so he's like 1,000.
Hogan starts at 1,000.
He's the guy.
If he loses, I also have an option in there where you can have championship points as well. I use them because I like my title changes to be rare.
I think Hulk needed them in that last one I played.
Yeah, I like the title changes to be very rare.
Yeah,
interesting stuff.
So I give them championship points in championship matches, which are extra points for the tag champions, for the U.S. champion, for the world champion, for everybody. Yeah. But they're not on their sheet, and there's a line for it for you to write them in.
Yep.
Because it's going to change every match.
I didn't realize. I thought, like, saying Glory Days boxing, right? Rocky Marciano. I'm trying to think. I don't have the card, but I want to say, like, in a 15-round fight, he's 110 points.
Yeah.
So he's always. So
not like that. It changes.
It changes depending on circumstance. What happens?
And also, it depends on who you beat. So you'll get more points if you beat, say, Randy Savage or Andre the Giant than you'll get if you beat Iron Mike Sharp, Terry Gibbs, or Barry Horowitz. Like, you'll get more points the higher they're ranked.
And so I'd almost call it like
leveling up.
It's leveling. I'd almost call it like you could play the game as like, say, like arcade mode where it's just like it's just a one-off and then you go do your own thing or whatever. Or more of like a season campaign.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Your wrestler progresses or decreases or whatever the case is, and that's the beauty of it, that you play as a one-off or a season of sorts.
So that really enhances the whole, like you're saying, the territory. Yes, you could do one. I'm a one-off kind of person. I'm saying that enhances that. You could somehow, I don't know, Barry Hurwitz, if you somehow finagle that he wins 3 or 4 matches.
Yes,
he could actually.
He could rise and become important.
And I think the beauty of your books as well is that you have a full roster of guys within one territory. So it's going to be pretty hard to play through all the guys in that one book, essentially. Yeah. Right?
No, it's absolutely a territory over a time period.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would have, say, a pretty hard roster that I have all the time for the 5 years.
Yeah.
And then everybody else is going to rotate in and out throughout those 5 years because that's the way it was, right? Like that's what actually happened is that they would rotate out and rotate in. And it's really cool in that sense. But you do sort of have to leave the rankings the same and leave everyone in the rankings because the points that you gain or lose after the match are based upon the total rankings. So you do have to sort of leave the rankings with everyone in them and then just sort of move the guys who you use up and down the rankings as they are. Because, the rosters are interesting because I think I made it sound earlier like it was hard to make the roster. It's 100 moves. These rosters are large. Like these are large rosters. These are large tag team rosters as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I think
Is there a specific page that you have the roster on in the book?
Yes. There's not a specific page for each book, but they're in each book, but it's not the same page in each book.
No. Okay. I'm just going to, I was just trying to.
The rosters are the rankings pages.
Yes. Okay. I know what I've seen. Okay. Right. Because that will list all of them.
Usually after like all the singles wrestlers, then you'll see
it's going to be the
ranking page for the singles.
I want to read off.
And the tag teams will be right after
Right.
the tag team charts.
Yeah.
And then the managers will be right after that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, check it out. Watch some of the videos. You determine for yourself. But I'm just taking another look here. For just the WWF one, which
85 through 90. Yeah.
85 through 90. And I'm just looking at all these wrestlers. You could do a lot of stuff here. I mean,
yeah.
And I'm just going to.
It's well over 100, right?
Yeah, I'm just flipping through.
I think it's 130, 150.
And you have Kamala. I always liked Kamala. I saw him in a dark
underrated.
match. No,
Yeah.
absolutely
Underrated.
And if you watch, they have I think I can't remember what channel did it, but it was a documentary on him. The gentleman, he was from Texas, in reality, not really from Africa.
Yeah.
Shocking, right? But
I think his name's James Harris, I believe.
yeah, something like And I think he's passed away. I want to say he's passed away.
I think he did.
But
Yes.
very interesting story. But I saw Kamala. This is really great when I going to wrestling at the Civic Center, right? And I hadn't been to wrestling in a long time. I mean, I remember my grandfather taking me a couple of times when I was a kid, real little. And then I went again when wrestling was fading.
Yeah.
Main event. I don't know if I ever told you this Pops review, because Pops has a beautiful, he told a beautiful story on his I think it's his last video about how his dad took him to him and his brother to the wrestling matches, and he was able to see these. And I have no lie, I have goosebumps because I love that stuff, right? Mm. So I'll just tell you a quick little funny story. So my friends, I hadn't been to wrestling in a long time. I liked watching it on TV, but I hadn't been there since my grandfather passed away. Mm. And they go, we're going to go. And I had to be like 11 years old, right? And we take the bus down to the Civic Center. And I'm like, well, what tickets? He goes, no, we're going to buy the worst tickets. He goes, no one's there, believe me. So we were like, and there's no real bad seat in the small Civic. It was like 8,000 people. There's not 8,000 people for wrestling, right? At the time. And so and the security guy is watching us as we keep moving lower and lower and lower. So then we maneuver. And then we're trying to get on the floor, right? And the security guy comes up and goes, listen, I've watched you move down and down and down. He goes, I'm paraphrasing now, I can't remember, but the gist of it was, I really don't care. But if you think I'm going to get in trouble for you guys coming on the floor, you stop right here. You can. He goes, in fact, move up a little bit because you can see a little better, right? And it was fun. The main event for this match was supposed to be Ken Patera and Rocky Johnson. Oh, wow. Well, Rocky Johnson must have decided he didn't want to come to that Civic Center. He didn't show up. So it was Ken Patera versus the guy who helps put the ring together. It looked like he was in. I'm almost positive Converse basketball sneakers. Ken Patera, the guy was probably an aspiring wrestler, right?
Yeah.
So now the Ken Patera lets him put a couple of mini squash. And I'm like, well, that sucked, but we had fun. So now move forward. Wrestling gets popular again, at least in people. We go to see. It was Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon were doing the matches. We go to see, they were doing tapings. So we go. Things I remember. Every time Bobby Heenan changed his blazer, it was a new card, right? Mm. So that was fun, right? Then the main event, this is how they publicized locally. Hulk Hogan wrestling Kamala for the heavyweight title. And again, we all know it's results, right? We're even though we're a little old, I think we were like 13. I mean, we already knew a little while. Every once in a while, you went, "Do these guys really hate each other?" That's what made it cool, right? When the old days, right? So then we're sitting there going, and we're all happy we could see Hulk Hogan and Kamala. I always liked Kamala. I thought he was a great character, great wrestler. I mean, for what he could do. I mean, he went off the second rope, and boom, and I mean, I still feel bad for Salvatore Bellomo in that squash match. I was like, boy,
incredibly underrated. He could move. He was very talented in the ring.
Remember the jumping chop to the head?
He owned the character. I mean,
yeah.
I love watching Kamala.
I like Kamala.
I didn't remember him being that good until I charted his matches. He's awesome.
Yeah. So now,
awesome.
We're waiting for the match, right? And now we're watching them breaking down the cameras and we turn to each other. Well, the title's not changing here, which we didn't think anyway, but it was a good match.
After you knew.
I want to say it went 12 to 15 minutes, if that, maybe a little less. But it was bing, 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 bing. It was a fun match. Kamala missed the splash. Hogan drops the big leg on him to finish him off, and he slammed him. That was and again, he's I get the point. The guy has to let you slam him, but still.
No, it's awesome.
You got to pick him up and do it.
Even after you knew kind of how it all worked, before the internet, you still knew, okay, Hogan's not going to hold the title forever.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
How's he going to lose it?
Who are they going to have? Yeah. So who are they going to have? I was convinced it was going to be Orndorff because it was
he had the look.
Feud.
He had the look. He had the intensity. That would have been interesting. I would have liked that.
I was convinced.
Oh, what did you think when they had that cage match on Saturday Night's Main Event and
it was a tie?
Yeah, it was a tie. Yeah.
You
can see Orndorff's laser strainer.
That's the build up. That's the build up. The next big thing.
Yeah.
But
if that would have happened in the game, I would have gotten some nasty emails, right? but it happened, and it happened on a great show. On Saturday Night's Main Event.
Paul Orndorff.
But so the story is that they actually, it wasn't a tie, so they had to like maneuver the tape.
Yes.
That it was a tie.
You gotta watch it again, Al. It's funny. It's super funny.
Before the end of the match, it was a great match.
Yeah. Paul Orndorff, he was with Piper, Orndorff,
Orton,
and they had a fourth. I never remember the fourth guy. I know it might not, but we were waiting for guys to come out after outside of the Civic Center. My friends were like, "Let's wait," because they went to more matches than I did. I go, "They're not gonna." He goes, "No. We're gonna go to McDonald's across the street." He goes, "All the regular guys come out, but he goes, all the good guys. I mean, like the more whether heel or face, they come out here and they wait." He goes, "We know this, right? Because they've had autographs and a couple of pictures, right?"
Right.
Well, I can't remember who that, but it was a good guy. He came out and he didn't even pay attention. He just went. Again, they're playing a character. I get that. They probably don't want to be bothered. But Piper, Orndorff, Orton, and again, I don't remember the fourth guy with them.
Yeah.
They're heels. They came out and they were just, I mean, they were still sort of in character, don't get me wrong. But the interaction was, did you enjoy? We saw the match, and we, I had a Hot Rod shirt anyway, so they were like, he was like, and I don't know, was he a good guy? Were they? No, they still had it because Orndorff was with them. So whatever, and we were like, and they gave us a few seconds and it shook our head.
I was
like, that's awesome. I never rooted for the good guys again.
I have that kind of story. I was at Kiel Auditorium.
Yep.
And at Kiel Auditorium, so I was by the door as well. And Pedro Morales, he was a face, right? But he came out and he was not very nice, right?
Yeah.
Haku came out and I said, I must have been like 10 years old.
Yeah.
Can I have your autograph? And he went, "Rah!" And then he waved me over and he signed it.
Oh, that was awesome.
Smiled and handed it back to me, right? Right. But he had a show.
Yeah.
It was tough, right? He kind of made
awesome.
a noise at me first, the show. I'm still a heel, but and then he waved me over and he signed it. So he was really, really nice. And you just remember those things, and you also don't realize how short a lot of them are until you see them face to face in person as well. Really sort of a lot of small guys.
I want, before I go into another little quick story about like our AEW experiences, which I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
Hasim, can you just tell us about when you went, if someone didn't see that little, do you mind sharing that story again when your dad took you and your brother to see the wrestling matches?
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I want to hear, I'd like to hear it again.
Sure. Well, first, like the solo promoter, he played a match that he saw
Yep.
And I thought that was a cool idea, you know. So I thought, well, you know, I totally remember the matches I played there. So my dad, you know, he was a wrestling fan, and he wanted to surprise my brother and I to take us to go see wrestling. So I was 10 years old, because this is back in '86.
Yep.
You know, I'm 46 right now. So he took my brother and I to go watch wrestling in November of '86. I totally remember. And he surprised us with it. You know what I mean? He didn't tell us we were going to wrestling. He kind of like in the evening, he's like, "You guys want to go wrestling?" And we're like, as kids, we're like, "Yeah, let's go." Yeah, you know, and we know Hogan and Orndorff are going to be at the arena, you know, but we, you know, you're not going to beg your parents, "Please, can we go?" You know, he kind of just like, "You guys want to go?" "Yeah, let's go." So, you know, we go, and we're at the Winnipeg Arena. It seats about maybe, you know, 16,000, and it was sold out. It was sold out. And I remember all the matches, like, you know, because they had Hillbilly Jim against Volkov, and I was like, you know, what do you call it? It was like they both got, it was a count out or whatever, you know. And then they had Santana against Kamala, so I saw Kamala too.
I loved seeing Kamala.
Yeah, and the Wizard, I think he had his horn, and they threw it into Kamala, and then, you know, he used it on Santana, and then he got disqualified or whatever. So there was that. And then the Dream Team took on the Killer Bees. So then they, you know, the Bees did their whole switching the mask and all that, and they got the victory on the Dream Team. And then Hogan and Orndorff. Now, when Orndorff came out, he's playing Hulk Hogan's music, right? Because he stole the music from Hulk Hogan, the Real American.
Yeah.
He came out, you know, and, you know, the fans are booing. And then Hulk kind of just came out, you know, with this. They didn't stop the music; they just continued playing it. And then he came out, and the arena just lit up when he came out. Like, it just exploded when he came out. And I was a Hulk Hogan fan, so as a little kid, like, this, it's a memory that just sticks with me, because I was just seeing like my favorite wrestler wrestle, you know, and it was so awesome. And for my dad to take me, is a special memory for me, you know. And
wonderful.
Yeah,
it's great.
I just want to share something. You were talking about when we were kids, right? We were all talking about when we were kids and the memories about. So my wife, Nurse Teresa, and I, first one we went to was in Worcester, Massachusetts. Our seats were a little up, but it would be fun to see the, you know, certain wrestlers come down. So then she surprises me. She gets tickets. We go to Mohegan Sun. She gets tickets right where they come out. I'm like, oh, cool. Wow. And again, the heels come out. They're playing the heel part, right? But I have to say, whether you like certain wrestlers or not, if you think they're gimmicky, to see, there were little kids near us, right? Mm-hmm. Their parents brought them, and they wanted to see their favorite wrestlers, and they wanted their wrestlers to wave to them. And when you see that happens, when you see a Danhausen, I know a lot of people, I like Danhausen, I have Danhausen stuff all over. Again, whatever. And I'm not usually a gimmicky kind of, but he makes it fun, right?
Right.
Orange Cassidy, the kids, and you see he waved to me, and you come over and he does it. That makes him happy.
Yeah.
When Warlow came out, because they had already flipped him to a face, because the crowd, you know, they flipped him. They wanted to cheer for him. Mm-hmm. And this is already, but when people, and my wife's wearing, she's a big Warlow fan. She's wearing a shirt now. Hey, Warlow. And he looks and he goes, and we have the picture of him going, and he points and he goes like that, right? That's cool.
It is.
Because I remember we left the arena there at Mohegan Sun, and I kept going, was that not awesome? With the kids, I go, the enjoyment, the love, like they were so happy. And then when the bad guys, the one thing that certain bad guys, they would interact, they go, you know, like, and that was all right too. But I tell you that once in a while, you'd like to, I'm a House of Black fan.
Yeah.
I think they do it the best because they will interact positively with their, like, they don't sit there and go, they'll go over there, interact and say, hey, have a nice, they're
awesome in the ring as well.
They are unfreaking believable. Unfortunately, the two shows we went to, we didn't, Malachi had already taken his hiatus for a bit, and so did Buddy.
Yeah.
But I would like to see sometimes the tweener guy, maybe a little more heelish, but then I had a whole, it's funny because for Nurse Teresa, I said AEW missed. I like thinking up, you know, like you try to think up the storyline. Can we outthink them, or what would we do? I said, you know what they should have done with the House of Black? Only because I've seen Malachi Black and Brody King. He does the toy hunts with Ethan. You know, they're funny, they're nice, right?
Yeah.
I go, they missed a huge thing, not to turn them face, right?
Yeah.
But when 10 Vance, when he turned heel and he like made the little kid cry, you had the perfect opportunity, just a little storyline where, you know, you could have them come out and go, you know, that's not however they want to put it in a House of Black way. Like, you shouldn't do that. And now the House of Black, is going to make you pay. It just would have been cool because I watched an interview they were doing in the ring with Dan. Again, it was like a little comedy thing, but they stayed in character, serious, suits on, ties, right? And they noticed the little boy like crying, and Malachi Black goes, "Are you afraid?" And the kid must have said, "You can't see that." He goes, "Don't be afraid. No one's going to hurt you." And they stay in character, and he makes the kid you can kind of see the kid giggle, you know, like get calmed down a little bit. He goes, "Is so-and-so I can't remember what wrestler said." And the kid nods, yes. He goes, and then they go, "Well, he needs to be afraid, but not you. You never need to be afraid." And that was cool. So I thought sometimes everyone likes, I don't know, I like the likable bad guy.
Yeah.
That's just me.
I always like the bad guys who feud with the bad guys as well.
Yes.
I can remember the Four Horsemen who had a great feud with the Russians in '86.
Yeah.
And it was when Nikita was a bad guy and
before he turned face
at Starrcade, before he turned face.
Because the guy got hurt in the
face.
Magnum.
Yeah. He turned face after the Magnum accident. Yeah.
That's it. I couldn't think of that.
Yeah. But they had a Horseman thing with the Russians. And that was really interesting because I don't think at the time I had seen a bad guy feud before.
No,
but it was cool. It was really cool. But you have the chance to do that in the game as well, to go back to
absolutely
for a second. And it's really cool because you can sort of do all of your ideas as well in any way that you would like to do them. But that's the cool thing about running a territory over a time period is, you know, that you can write them on the board as well. And it's cool. But MJF is, oh God, Thomas. Yeah.
Listen, there's one where he's with an 11-year-old girl. You know,
he's like, Andy Kaufman, man.
Oh my God. He is.
He's all the time.
I'm not going to say what he said to the 11-year-old girl and the father. And again, they know what they're getting into. And she's giving it right back to him. And my nurse Teresa and I were just laughing because of the stuff he said. He actually does a thing. You can find the person's in a wheelchair and he goes, "I'm better than you." And MJF looks at him and goes, "No, you're not. You're in a wheel." And they went back and he knew the guy was having a good time.
Yeah.
I thought at one point they might have flipped him. I thought they were going to flip him just a little bit. And then he just went back to.
Okay, but when they do, he's going to be a monster face.
Yeah.
Like, if they work the heels right, the more hated that they are, the more liked they are when they turn. Like, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So yeah, no, it's very cool. It's one of the things that I like. And I can't remember if we talked about this before the show or if we've mentioned it during the show, but the territories are interchangeable to some degree in that.
Yes, you guys talk about.
So
we talked.
You could have like a tag team tournament like the Crockett Cup, and invite tag teams from across the world or across the territories, and it works. The point where it's not going to be interchangeable or where it won't be realistically interchangeable, it will always be practically interchangeable. But where it's going to get realistically weird is when you have
large differences
just
in
an
the eras.
on the mat guy. Like Aluthez.
Yep,
is a good example. He's going to be doing arm drags and takedowns for most of every match. When you have him taking on a Roman Reigns, a Brock Lesnar, they're just naturally going to roll higher impact moves worth more power points the whole match. And their power points might be a little lower than Luthez, but the power points expended via the moves are going to more than make up for it, and they're going to squash Lutez just because of what he's doing in the ring. Like, he's not going to have a move like the spear. He's not going to have high impact moves like that. So that's where it's sort of, you can make it interchangeable, but it's at the risk of maybe it being unrealistic in some way. But as far as the PowerPoints are concerned, they're all structured for you to be able to take a guy from Portland, take him down to Georgia, and he fits in. It still works. Yep. Oh, yeah. Magnum was the guy. He was going to be the guy. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. He was awesome at B6.
It's fun sharing those memories. So, okay. So the PowerPoints change. That's something I learned.
Yes.
You have a lot of different charts in here.
Yeah.
Pops, Hasim, walk us through. You know what I'd like to do at a later date to get a little better recording? I'd like you, maybe possible that. And again, I just thought of it, like to play an you know what I mean? To show it off, where I'm pretty sure I can just share one person with the camera or something.
Yeah.
And just walk through a quick, you can bring the points down, just basics, which Pops has done. But I mean, maybe both of you together, just walking through it and thought process. I think that would be interesting to do for people, to give them a better look at the game. And again, please check out my foot sneaker came off. Please, mechanical difficulties, or what's that called? Wardrobe
malfunction.
Yeah.
I think that would be something, or like walk me through one. I'm gonna actually, when I have a chance with Hasim, I want to walk through it, because I'm a visual learner also, and other games I've literally, like the play.com games, very different to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different animal.
Play.
Yeah, and they're fun.
Love play.
The baseball game, I have notes, and that's how I learn the game. And I'll flip through, and sometimes I have to look at it. But and again, I'm not saying it's the same thing with yours, but for me, because I think I said this from the beginning, it was a different way for me to look at a setup of a game where I'm used to bing, bing, bing. Yeah. And that's on me. That's nothing against the game, because I've watched it. I'm like, wow, this game does play well. And there's a couple of thought process I had, like when you're saying, like, if you're doing a 10-minute match, one of my thought process, and I was talking with Pop's review, I think just before you came on, you could, because there's levels of points, you can bring down their points and say, because it's a 10-minute match. Right. Pops, you like to use the double damage, right?
Yes.
And
and I think that's the great thing about the game, is that if you want to have it the way Mr. Patrick created it, you could, essentially grind it out, and go for, like, is especially a championship match, you could kind of do it that way and grind it out and see, like, is Magnum going to beat Ric Flair or whatever the case is, right? But if you don't really have the time for it, you can still double the damage. It's still a fair system, because both guys are doubling damage, right? So
right.
It's still fair to both guys.
Yeah, no, it is, and there are homebrewed rules, especially for when you get your opponent under 0, where it makes it much easier to pin the guy, and it makes it much easier to perform your finishing move when it's under 0 as well. And I think they were added into the AWA book under the homebrew area. So I had some questions before about, when somebody's down so low, why can't I just put on my finishing move? And so I kind of made it where you could definitely roll it. I still want you to need to roll it, right? There still has to be a game aspect, a gaming part of it. So, but I made it much easier to roll higher, because once they're under 0, you're adding a bunch of points onto your roll. So you'll get the higher moves when they're under 0, which makes it easier to pin. So that's possible too. But yeah, I love to watch other guys play the game, but I love to read their write-ups as well. And I also love to see when you can tell they've added storyline between the matches. Love that.
And it's funny because you know, I played the games, I played some matches, and then you know, I'm usually you would make a comment usually on the videos to say, oh, you know, and you hadn't made any comments on mine, so I'm like, is he happy with the way I'm playing?
Yeah,
or is he
no.
so
the ones I commented on were if I saw someone, and I try to be really nice about it because I'm trying to help, right?
Right.
I'm not trying to say you're doing it wrong. Like,
yeah,
I'm trying to help. I really am. So I say, you could probably do this instead of this. But when I watch you, like, I like how you play. Like, I usually don't have any issues, and I don't have any issues with anyone else either.
no, right.
But somebody will usually make a comment or ask a question of some kind in their video, not the person hosting it.
Yeah.
But someone will make a comment in the comments that I need to respond to and explain a concept or something like that. That's usually where I make my most responses.
Yeah. And one thing I want to say, like, I know like this is kind of like your baby, your game system kind of thing. So I know you take great care, and you know, I'm so thankful that you are responsive to people's questions and you know, really hands-on with the game. And I know I've read people you know, question like, why is this that way and why is that, and you know, there's maybe a better wrestling game out there. And you know, I it's almost like it's
go play it.
Go play it, exactly.
I never understand people. I always say this: if you don't like a game, is it really necessary for someone who's enjoying the game that you have to sit there and say something about that game? I guess it is for some people. Go play whatever game you want.
Yeah, go play. And you know, I would never take it personally because you have made a great system. So many people now are introduced to it. And the thing is, again, it's a simulated game essentially. So it's almost like that game. It's not even a game, but like they used to have a thing like you could play. Let's say like an airplane game like Afterburner, and you know, it's all arcadey and you're flying, and you're shooting down planes. And then there was like the plane simulator where it teaches you how to fly a plane. So you know, some people were like, oh, this is not for me. You know, I want to play Afterburner, but this is one that's like showing me how to do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's how I feel about your game. And I think people sometimes they, you know, like we're saying, they have kind of unrealistic expectations of what they saw before.
Yeah.
Like I made fun Al. I sent him an email one time because I played a match with Billy Jack Haynes versus Hercules, right?
Yeah.
So I played a match, and all they're doing is punching, kicking, and chopping.
And that's about right. That's about right.
I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with that, right? Yeah. But I sent you an email jokingly, like, all these guys are doing are punching, kicking, and chopping this match, and then I go back and you're like, you told me like, yeah, go watch the match. I go watch the match.
Yeah.
And sure enough, what are they doing? They're punching, kicking, and chopping each other.
Yeah.
It's not the move after move after move.
Yeah, it's absolutely it. Like I explained earlier, the best thing about the game is that it's realistic. The worst thing about the game is that it's realistic.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna perform like they really performed, and that is for the best and for the worst.
Yeah. Now, and then, like, let's say even the Hogan match I had. Now, if I played Hogan and Orndorff with two 20-sided dice, right? Yeah. Now, if I wanted Orndorff to really lose, I play him at a 10 dice or an 8 dice against Hogan if I think Hogan's going to just blow him through the match, right? But it's up to you, right? It's up to you how equal you want to make guys or less.
You are controlling the 3-ring circus. You are the promoter.
You are.
You're telling the story. If you want to,
I would use the 1d10s on the house shows, and I would use the higher dice on the pay-per-view because I kind of don't want the pin to happen on a house show in Poughkeepsie. Like, I kind of want it to go to the raffle chart and have.
That's really using a lot of logic there. If you're really thinking, well, I want them to come to I want them to buy the pay-per-view or come to the
Yes.
Big arena. I want them to travel to Madison Square Garden to see this because they're like, so-and-so got screwed, and now he's going to come,
I don't want to end the feud in Elmira. Like, I want them to... I want the Elmira main event of Hulk Hogan and Orndorff. I want Heenan up on the ring. I want something to happen. I want to have a run-in. I want to have all these things so that I can schedule the next match 3 weeks down the road, and it means something as well, so that I can work towards a match where I use the higher dice to lower the wackiness level at the pay-per-view. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's cool. I mean, I think that's fun. I think that's fine.
Good friend of the channel and the community, Golden Eagle 99, asks Mr. St. Patrick, ECW. That was some wild wrestling.
Okay, so ECW is fun, right?
Yes.
So I've already begun charting ECW. There will be no disqualifications. I can tell you that. It's not going to happen. It's been fun for me to figure out a way to have hit opponent with a steel chair just be a regular move and it not have a disqualification attached. Imagine the amount of wacky things in ECW that are going to go into the raffle chart. Imagine the amount of just craziness that's going to go into it. But yes, every ECW guy that has 100 moves charted is going to be in the game, is absolutely going to be in the game. And ECW starts in the early 90s. Yep. So when we're getting to the early 90s on both sides of the 80s, it's going to be there in order. Absolutely. I can't wait to do it. It's going to be, quick story man. It's going to be RVD, Sabu. I can't wait to do Sabu. I can't wait to see the final sheet for Sabu or for Taz. I mean,
Dudley Boys,
imagine? I mean, it's going to be, or Terry Funk, or Cactus Jack, or Too Cold Scorpio, or Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. I mean, ECW is going to be a blast.
I'll tell you something. I had gotten away from wrestling again, right? And I think they were on Spike TV, I think.
Yeah.
I'm clicking by. I'm like, what?
Late 90s, early 2000s, yeah.
This. And so I'm getting ready to go out with my friend, getting ready to go out. And I'm watching the I think because they ended at 10. I want to say they went 8 to 10 or something like that. And I'm watching them. I go, these guys are insane. And I would watch almost every, watching. And again, some people say that stuff ruined wrestling to a point because now people are like, you had to one up the nuts.
The topic,
what they did. There's give and take. I can see that point.
Japan has that perfectly down. Japan has entire territories where one territory will be very technical. I mean, super technical. And then one territory will be all light bulbs and glass and just insane.
FMW.
Yeah. And, it's pure insanity.
Yeah. And
it's isolated.
Yeah. Here's the thing with that. And again, I'm a little more old school with that. I like steel cage, once in a while, a steel cage match, a hardcore match to a point, but it's the usual. Okay, here comes the chair. Here come the tax. See, to me, it now becomes redundant. It's not.
Yeah, right.
It's not intriguing.
I agree.
To me,
I agree.
I'll tell you, we watched the dog collar match, CM Punk and MJF. My dyslexia, sorry, kicked in.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Oh, it was a great match." It was a good match.
Yeah.
To me, it went 10 to 15 minutes too long because
dog collar match, man.
No, it now becomes they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, the best part of that, it was a good match. The ending, when they had the crowd pop because Warlow comes out, gives the ring to just leaves it and CM Punk use it. That was awesome. But to go back to the MJF Bryan Danielson match, again, AEW, I enjoy it. Tony Khan did a disservice by not 3 weeks later just putting that match for people who have not, and I'm sure people bootlegged it or whatever, but who have not seen that match, they should have put it on a show. just say on the Friday show, right? We're going to show you this hour-long match instead of, because it was a phenomenal, that had everything to me that I enjoy. And with some of
this, I liked that match a lot more. And again, it's like Starrcade 83 with Race and Flair. I recently watched and charted the 1984 Starrcade dog collar match with Piper and Valentine.
That's insane, that match.
And it's no good.
It's no good. That for the first few.
Yeah.
Again,
for the year.
Yeah.
For the time period, for the style.
Yeah.
It's a brutal match.
Yes.
Right? When you see it in hindsight, it's not so good. When you write it down on paper, move by move, it's like yank the dog collar.
Yeah.
Right? It's tough.
Yeah. It becomes redundant. So it's not special anymore.
Yeah.
For me. The other thing I don't understand why they don't see this in wrestling now.
Yeah.
Again, I watch AEW and I watch Roman Reigns. That's about it for WWE. But how do you misjudge which wrestlers that the crowd wants to, pop for? I've seen it over and over again in AEW where they're pushing, and in women's wrestling a lot, where they were pushing Ruby Soho, and it was the girl who got injured and still not back. And they make this phenomenal move. She just lands 3 devastating moves. The crowd's popping. If you know how they talk to the ref, they should go, change it. 1, 2, 3 for her. How did you not get that? How did they not understand that?
I have long never understood. So, I mean, they're all talented, right? They're more talented than I am. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes. So
me too.
When I judge a wrestler, I'm not really being harsh. I'm saying what I think of them compared to other people in the business. If you can explain to me why Honky Tonk Man needed the Intercontinental title for any amount of time compared to the entire roster that they had of absolute stars, how they decided to push Honky Tonk Man was unreal to me. Now, I know he was good with Hogan to some degree. He's Jerry Lawler's cousin. I get it. All this kind of stuff. I thought there were much better options in that year than throwing the IC title on Honky Tonk Man.
I think
Ricky Steamboat wanted to go on vacation, take a break.
I think it was a punishment to Steamboat though.
It must have been.
Yeah.
No, there were other heels. Why not Orndorff? I mean, why not, Piper?
You know the thing about Orndorff? That would have been interesting because his stuff looked real.
Yeah.
Like when you sit there and watch him put the kicks. And again, he was a punch, kick, clothesline guy, slam you, pose, taunt, but he did it really well. I mean, the match with Hogan in Canada, I watched that over. I'm like, it's a phenomenon. I thought it was a good. Again, maybe I'm wrong. I watched it a couple of months back. I thought, and the intensity before he and then he had issues with the arm. One of the arms where he had hurt his arm with something. But he was a really phenomenal.
Oh, he was
presence in the ring.
Yeah, and if I may, I would like to ask Hasim a question, if I could.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I find interesting about anybody who plays the game, and one of the hardest things that I had to decide in the beginning is just right off the bat, how am I going to handle my titles? How am I going to decide who's the champion? How am I going to decide how many titles I'm going to have? How do I decide? Do I want to have tournaments? Do I want to already right off the bat have a tournament for every title and then ruin the value of a tournament? Like, how do I want to do this? So how did you decide from the very beginning how you're going to handle the championships?
Well, you pretty much set the PowerPoints. So, Hogan, if you go to WWF, Hogan is at 1,000 PowerPoints already.
Yeah.
Now you could play it out, right? You could have a tournament. You could do whatever you want because it's your game. You could make whoever you want as a champ. But you already gave the PowerPoints for the guys, so it's almost like, okay, well, this looks like it's starting from 85. Well, Hogan's a WWF champ, and Santana might be the Intercontinental champ, and let's say the U.S. Express if you wanted to go back that far. You know what I mean? And you can just play it out from there. So it's up to you how you want. If you want to play it from the timeline and then have whatever wackiness happen from the start of that timeline, or make a tournament if you want to, get deeper and that. Like, it's totally up to you. But I just preferred to take the timeline, start it where it was or whatever, But the match I played recently was just a showing of how a card would play out from what I watched when I was a kid, right? So that's what I played. But if I'm going to start, if I'm going to start it, I would start it probably at 85 for WWF and just kind of go from there on.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. As I watch Dallas, right, they would just come out with titles out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
I'd be watching Dallas, and it would be
bare knuckles
suddenly here are the East Asian Tag Team Champions, and I'm like, the East Asian Tag Team Champions.
Yeah,
where did that come from?
Yeah,
I mean, it just out of nowhere. So I had to decide, like, I think I like starting with 2 individual titles and 1 tag team title.
Yeah. One thing I would say too is, like, if you're starting up in the game, don't complicate yourself. And what I mean by that is, like, don't make, like, 8 different title holders and, start off with a roster of, like, say 50 guys, because then you're like, well, how do I make this guy in the match? And how do I bring this in? Like, you're going to just frustrate yourself, right? So let's start small, play whatever feuds or whatever you want to get going, and then increase the play, right, as you go on. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yep. I mean, I know a guy who decided not to start with any titles, and he played 3 months of house shows and then had a pay-per-view, which was like a Night of Champions, whatever. And whoever the top 2 guys were at the end of the 3-month house show run had the pay-per-view match.
Yeah.
So there are so many things that you can do with how to decide your titles.
Yeah, but because of your PowerPoint system, I just kind of just left it as, like, these guys are the champs from this time period. If it was another wrestling game, and you're starting from scratch, then maybe, like, you gotta, like, play a tournament for your champs, or just name them off the bat, whichever is easier for you, But
I think it's important with whatever game you're playing. Don't overcomplicate. Like, if you have,
well, I think that's the thing, right? If you were playing, say, a football season or a baseball season, and to think that you're going to play, 162 baseball games or whatever, like, you're going to be like, oh man, this is daunting to play all these games. This is just one team, even. I have a set of 29 teams. I'm going to play.
No, you have
games for each team. If
you
just
well,
break it down.
That's what I said about. I created the game, and along with my friends, and since we've had a quick play option, I don't think none of us play out fully every match on a card, except if it's a pay-per-view. Like, you've got to decide, or we don't use the wrestling raffle chart if it's Iron Mike Sharp against Barry Horowitz.
No,
like, you don't want the extra stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Like, you want that stuff to be special. So I'll only use the wrestling raffle chart, say the last 2 matches of the card. So you need, to tailor it as well to whatever fits the way that you want to handle the game and the way that you want your territory to run, because your territory is going to end up having a personality all its own.
Yeah.
Because it's yours, because it's your brain, it's your mind, it's your style. And I love reading those. I mean, man, the Delphi Page, love reading those. So
I'm what you would call a troll. Like, I read, but I don't really post as much. But I'm super interested in seeing what other people write about the game. I'm always wanting more information, kind of thing,
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah,
and I post everything there, right? Yeah. That's the one place where if I have a new idea, if I have a new sheet, it goes onto Delphi right away. Yeah. So if anybody really wants to stay up to date, that's how to do it.
Yeah.
Now, you also have a Facebook group page.
Yeah, my wife handles that one.
Okay.
I was on.
People post results there, or is it just purely
they can. I was on Facebook years ago, and it just got, at some point, it just got so negative just during the, the campaigns, election.
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay. And I just had to get off of Facebook.
Yeah.
I say to my wife, my spirit just cannot handle this. Like, I need positivity. I need peace.
Positivity is good.
Yeah.
Regardless of wherever you stand, I'm pretty sure we can all work everything out.
Yeah. And Facebook was rough.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a minefield. And I was watching at some point my best friends in the world, nicest people that I know, were making ugly comments about politicians and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to see this. Like, I don't want to see the best people that I know being the ugliest that I've ever seen them be. It really hurt my spirit a lot. And I just don't need that vibe, man.
No one does.
The
reason I got off Twitter. So I used to enjoy.
I like Twitter. So
I used to enjoy interacting with a lot of different boxers, and then just because they actually would reply back. Like if you say, "Oh, you see," they put a video. "Oh, I remember that fight," and they would, "Oh yeah, they'd like
cool.
to talk about it."
Yeah,
that was really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Quick question, because I'm just scrolling. Right, is Salvatore Bellomo?
Yes.
Did he make it?
Yeah.
Cool.
He's in there.
I was just curious because a lot of
in there. Yeah.
Yeah. People don't remember he actually wrestled for the championship against the Iron Sheik.
No, he was Salvatore Bellomo by 85 was
he was a jobber.
Kind of like Tony Gurria was though. I mean, Tony Gurria was a multi-time tag team champion.
Yeah.
Right? At
him and Zbyszko.
Yeah.
Him
and Rick
Martel
and Tito Santana. I believe.
I think you're right. I don't remember the Tito Santana thing as much, but I think I think he was three times at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was a tag specialist. But by 1985, he was sort of a show opener guy that would end up in a draw because he was kind of good.
Yeah.
So, he and Iron Mike Sharp were sort of the top tier of the bottom tier.
Yep.
And so
you got the Animal.
This 100 moves is in like every.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if I have to add 300 guys onto the roster. If 300 guys, I don't know how I'm going to do Nitro because
you'll cross that bridge when you get to it.
No kidding. That Nitro book might end up being like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to be a roster the size that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. Because their roster was huge.
It's quite phenomenal. The list of wrestlers. I'm just looking at the WWF one. Now, can someone, without looking at the book, obviously, right? Because that would give away the wrestlers. Is there lists if someone wants to know? Just a list.
Yeah, I think I posted, if not, I will. I think I posted those pages with the PowerPoints on them.
Okay.
As the rosters.
Okay.
On the Delphi page. If I didn't, I will. Because
that's a common question with a lot of games.
Away. Yeah.
Just say I picked up History Maker Golf, the Legend set, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know who was in there. I know Palmer.
A set, yeah.
Yeah, Palmer. Yeah, and I'm flipping through and there's no Chi Rodriguez. I'm like, I like Chi. My favorite golfers. You're my favorite golfer.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
Arnold Palmer. Lee Trevino, Chi Rodriguez. Those are because Chi did the Zorro thing.
Yeah,
when you're a kid, you're like, that's cool. That's cool. And he was a very good golfer.
They didn't put him in the game.
Watson and Kite, but yeah.
No, he's a supplement. Someone was telling me you can get him for free on a supplement, or I'm going to get the 60s, the 70s set eventually. But I would have, because I don't want to show a different game. I'm just saying, they did it differently. They made it colorful, and I kind of like that. So.
No, it's cool. That company is outstanding.
Very nice.
Such nice people.
Yeah,
nice people, and that community is so nice. And the conferences are amazing. Like
Alex,
amazing.
Mr. Patrick does the sports sim, so you're not really going too much off topic if you talk about another.
Oh, I know, but I don't like to
No.
do that when I have someone this. I'm telling you right now, this roster, again, check it out when if it's posted or when Mr. St. Patrick posts. This is Ronnie Garvin.
It's not St. Patrick.
Yeah, you are.
I like calling it ST.
Thank you.
You have Ron Garvin in the game for which he did go there. I remember.
Yeah. In '89,
where they started to lose me. Yeah. I hated when they changed everybody's name all of a sudden. That drove me nuts.
Me either, but it's all about branding, right? At that point.
Yeah, you're right.
And it became all about occupations. Like everybody had an occupation that was their character.
IRS.
Yeah, right.
And it Mike Rotundo people.
Yeah.
And then when Kerry Von Erich went, it's Kerry Von, right? Yeah, Texas Tornado.
Not the Texas Tornado.
Yeah.
I don't love
Terry Taylor, era. The Red Rooster. I'm just looking at it.
I don't love that era, but a lot of guys love those early 90s. And it's going to be a fun era. No, I mean, it's okay.
No, I'm not knocking. I'm just saying
it's going to be a fun era because Bret Hart is awesome in that era. Shawn Michaels is really good in that era. So it's going to be a fun era at the top. I don't know if it's going to be a fun era at the bottom, but at the top, man, Bret Hart was awesome in that era. And he's going to be fun.
When you start getting to like Duke the Dumpster Drosy and all those kind of guys, I don't know.
I don't know. If you're a wrestling fan, you're like, you can pretty much possibly do it as played. I'm sure there's not every wrestler.
Yeah, so
but you have Angelo Mosca Jr. Yeah. You have David Sammartino. Again, he wrestled a bit there. Jesus, wow. I'm just ST. I always liked ST Jones.
Yeah.
You know who tells a funny story? But regarding ST Jones, Tony Atlas tells the story where he screwed ST Jones out of the tag team titles because they're going to put the belts on.
Yeah.
They want to reward ST Jones, right? And they've been putting him with Tony Atlas, and I guess they had won a few. But I kind of remember this a little bit. Eddie goes, Chief Jay Strongbow comes, make sure, because Atlas sometimes had a bad habit on small, like not the biggest shows, I guess. And I'm just telling you what he said. He had a foot fetish, and there was this woman he was going to go see because he had a foot fetish. It's a funny story you can find online. And instead of showing up for the match, and they're telling him, show up for this, something. They don't tell him. Again, this is him telling the story. He goes, had they told me they were going to put the belts on us, I probably would have went. And he goes, I basically screwed SD Jones. He goes, who I liked, out of his biggest moment because they put him with someone else, and I forgot who was champs, but maybe it was the Samoans or something. They weren't going to put the title on.
It's going to be
funny
fun to play. It's going to be a good time to play the Samoans against Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas.
Yes.
That's going to be fun.
You have Tony Atlas. Tony Parisi was still wrestling there. Wow.
Yeah, late.
Well, Al Marvel's at the list. I was gonna ask, like some of the homebrew rules. Do you think you would ever make as just rules? Because I know if someone was to purchase the game and then they read rules and then they're kind of like, well, I want to play with the actual rules, but not the homebrew rules.
Yeah, no, the rules are the backbone of the game. I know this is not how it looks, when you get the book. There aren't that many rules. Like, it's really roll for control, roll for the move, and handle the points. And then if it's a tie, sometimes you go to the raffle chart. Yeah. There are other charts for being out of the ring, but there's a reason why, for example, the pinfall chart changes in every book is because in every territory, some territories go to pins faster. Some territories don't have that many pinfalls. So it's going to be harder to pin.
Right.
So that stuff is all still going to alternate. The out of the ring chart is small compared to what it's going to be in a place like ECW. it's going to be multiple pages, right? It's going to be a whole different chart. So what I like to do,
it was a rare event when they were in the ring.
Yeah, right. What I like to do as well is I want every book to have something special besides that territory. So in one book, it'll be the random angle generator. In one book, I'm going to figure out a way to automate star ratings for the matches. In one book, it'll be brand new stipulation matches. It'll be other things. So if, for example, by the time that we get to Portland and California, which will be a smaller book, we'll probably have something else in there that's kind of cool, other than just the territories. So there's still a reason to enjoy the book and to like it and to say, oh, well, I still want to get Portland and California because it's got the random angle generator in there, or it's got the automated star rating process in there. Right. So I'm trying to add some things. I also sort of love when guys first start to play the game and they learn the basics, because I feel like you're learning a core. And then I love to say, okay, now that you know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, why don't we add some charts and graphs in here? Well, let's add some geometry. Let's add some calculus down the road. I love to build upon this game as well, so that we can all, I mean, God, if I would have just started with Raw and Nitro, everybody would have probably liked it because, like, that's their era. But the game would have been so complicated because of what you need to play the Raw era and what you need to play the Nitro era and what you'll have to do to operate a TLC match, what you'll have to do to operate a War Games match, what you'll have to do to operate a Hell in a Cell. It's really good that we started in the 80s because that's, as I explained earlier, it's normal. It's the square box. And so by having to learn that first, you'll be an expert when it comes to everything else.
So the WWF book,
yes,
which again covers where I just saw it, 85 to 90, right?
Yes, April of 90.
Yeah, 142 wrestlers you get.
Oh, yeah.
142 wrestlers. Yeah. So
how many tag teams are there, Al?
Oh, I didn't even get to that yet. I didn't even get to that yet. I'm having, because see, when I start playing this game, you guys are going to be like, why did you do that? I would take, because again, I like to see, I would probably take some of the lower, start around, I kind of want to use Snuka, but around the 605 and down, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Because it'd be interesting, because you have, and you're right. I think Hasim's right. If you try to get all these guys in, you're gonna drive yourself nuts.
Now, for everyone out there too, whose timeline in their head might be a little shady, this is not peak Jimmy Snuka.
No, right.
Peak Jimmy.
This is after Piper smacks him in the head, I believe, in that time period, right?
Yeah,
that was a great Piper spit.
He was out a while handling some personal things.
Yeah.
And then he came back, and it really wasn't the same. So,
okay, so 142 single wrestlers. You have enough guys who you can build up a record if you want to,
Absolutely.
So remember, Hasim was doing a show he went to, and I think there were a couple of wrestlers that didn't make it because they didn't have the move set, the 100, how they qualify. Yeah. But you can find someone who can fit that bill.
So
put Mario
Mancini. It's interesting that you brought up earlier the possibility of doing as played. That's not really possible at all. And I'll say this: I have a few books on the shelves that just have the cards year by year. They're phenomenal books, and they're on Amazon. They're cool. They're not really books. It's just all the cards from every year.
There's a website too.
So interesting. Yeah. There's a website.
I sat there and I went, wow, someone tracked this stuff.
The problem is, especially when you go to Canada, they were using so many local guys on the undercard everywhere, really. Especially Canada, that they're just.
You could probably, when I say,
but you could come close.
Something close.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Okay, so that's 142 wrestlers, and it's not obviously not a peak Tony Atlas here.
No,
290. But I mean, you could, you could pit some of these guys, and I get it. I looked at their cards, and I get it. But if you pit just like in boxing, I always said this: ESPN or USA, USA actually topped ESPN when it came to this. They didn't care what level the fighters were at, but give us equal because we want good fights, right?
Yeah.
You could watch guys who are quote unquote journeymen, club fighters.
You can do that. Yeah.
They gave beautiful shows for the USA, and then they give you a pretty good quality. They were all quality fights, I have to say, on the USA Net. Not obviously there were some stinkers.
Yeah.
But they were more into let's have even good matchups. You could actually have some fun here. I mean, you could put Dory Funk Jr. against Tony Atlas.
Yeah.
Dory Funk Jr. has 312. I call them stamina points. Is that accurate?
I call them power points.
Power points. I'm sorry. And it does say that at the top.
Yeah.
So Dory Funk Jr. has 312 power points. Tony Atlas 290. Say you're running a show in a smaller arena. Well, did they go down to Texas then?
If I were in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, like if you were doing a smaller show.
If I were in Poughkeepsie, that
we're not making fun of Poughkeepsie.
That would be a good third match out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just saying you can have fun. I like looking at stuff like that because, again, on the top, Hogan, 1,000 power points. That's why Hasim, again, in that time period, he was champ. Andre, next, Ultimate War. I mean, again, it's all very logical. Ted DiBiase, people forget. Well, they don't forget. But that was another interesting. I just listened to a Ted DiBiase. I forgot what he was doing an interview, and they said, were you mad? Like the guys, were you upset when they didn't put the belt on you? He goes, no, I'm still making them. I made money.
Yeah.
He goes, I would have been upset if it cost me money.
DiBiase was great.
His gimmick was a
nice way back when.
I don't think people quite remember that he was treated like such a top guy at the time.
Yeah. I remember
absolutely a top heel.
And it was
absolutely.
Funny. It was funny to listen to him. He goes, because they pitched the idea, we're going to give you, you're going to be so arrogant, you're going to make up your own belt. And he goes, I like that.
Yeah.
He goes, I like that. The $1 million, and he goes, and that's when he came up together with, I think he said Pat Patterson, that he goes, we're going to defend it when I want against who I want. It's like, it's
no, he was great. I remember obviously that Hogan's at the top. Who's at the bottom? I forgot who was at the bottom.
I wanted to do that. So at the bottom, I don't remember these couple of wrestlers.
Okay.
Just the last two. I don't remember Reno Riggins, 100 power points. Rick Renslow. Put them in a steel cage match. It'll go on for 4 years.
Rick Renslow, he was an Alaskan. He was in a tag team called the Alaskans in the AWA as well. But he was an absolute jobber guy in WWF. But he was actually pretty good in AWA as well.
Here's a question I wanted to ask you too about when you're charting the moves too. Are you combining all the shows? Like, are you like, okay, if I'm charting Rick Rude, he did this on Superstars, and then he did this on Saturday Night's Main Event, and then he did this at WrestleMania. Is it separated? Like, how does that work?
I chart them all in a notebook.
Yeah.
And then it goes into an Excel file. So by the moves. So everybody has the same Excel file. And then I have to add things at the end of their file for all the specialty stuff that they do that aren't in the core, say, 100 moves that are already in their file. Okay. Now, they've got to hit a threshold for it to be on the move set. They have to have done the move like 1% of the time. So it's got to hit 1%, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're Jerry Lawler and I've charted near 5,000 moves, 1% means he needs to have done the move quite a number of times.
Yeah.
Not just one time in a match, in a random. Because, I mean, Hulk Hogan, he did a pile driver in a match, and I charted it. And he might have even done it twice, but I don't think he hit the 1% threshold.
Yeah.
So for it to be on the moves, because if I don't make it 1%, then a move set is going to be multiple pages. And I absolutely wanted to try to keep everybody on one page.
Absolutely.
Later on, that's not going to happen. When we get into the Raw Nitro era, it's not going to happen because you'll have, like, who'd be a good example of this? Say, for example, Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is going to have his move set, but he's also going to have a move set of specialty things that he does in a TLC match.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll also have special things he does in a ladder match. So you'll be incorporating him jumping off the top of the really tall ladder onto the table. And only he will be able to do it because he did it.
Right.
And so, but to make that happen, he has to have a special move set where when he rolls something on the regular move set, it asks you to jump to that move set.
Yeah.
And then you basically roll the X moves. Right now, I'm calling them X moves because it's sort of specialty match moves. So they're going to be multiple pages. Yeah.
Tag teams for the WWF, 31 tag teams.
31. Okay.
Now here's some, again, I'm trying. So again, the top Demolition, who I liked.
Yeah.
I know it's a ripoff of the Road Warriors sort of, but I liked them.
Had to be at the top though. Yeah.
Then British Bulldogs, Heart Foundation, Dream Team, Strike. I didn't look. Strike Force was Tito
and Rick Martel, who beat
Okay, yes.
titles.
Okay. I mean, because I mean, and you could see that who's on the card, but I mean, I just went to find. Now, here's a couple of them I didn't. Santana and the Junkyard Dog.
Yeah.
Snook and Steamboat. I don't really remember that one.
Okay, so it was interesting, and again, this is a good example of why I need to chart every show.
Yeah.
So Santana teamed for a couple months with JYD and with Steamboat on, it was either Wrestling Challenge or All American.
Yep.
They didn't have a match at MSG. They didn't have a match at Boston Garden. They didn't have a match on Primetime, anything like that. They only wrestled as a team on a Saturday show, and they wrestled as a team for like a month and a half. So they qualified.
To WrestleMania
when
2.
they charted that show, they aren't on there as a team.
They wrestled up to like WrestleMania 2 against the Funks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So you have a lot of good tag teams here. You have a tag team quick play ratings.
Yep.
So is that the quick play chart?
Yes.
Okay. Again, may I ask, what's the price of the PDF?
I don't remember because it varies with each.
For this one,
I would hate to be wrong. So
okay.
No.
If you want to look it up, because I want to explain to people.
No, I definitely don't want to be wrong because I don't want anybody to get mad at me and be like,
no, we don't want that either.
Well, you said on the show it was. The PDF for AWA is $15.99. Paperback is $21.99. Hardcover is $41.98.
What's it for the WWF? Because I'm looking at that.
The hardcovers cost me a lot to make. That's why.
Right.
Let me get down to it on the website. WWE ebook is $15.32. I don't know why that's an odd number. Paperback is $22.19, and the hardcover is about twice that.
Okay, so for the PDF, 15 and something, right?
Yeah.
142 wrestlers, singles. What I just say, 30. I think there was 31 tag teams. And you can also make your tag teams. There's a rule set for that. And again, you can do what you want. You could say they wrestled in Japan and they're going to be an A grade or whatever you want. It's your game. But I mean, again, that is a lot of if you enjoy wrestling, I suggest check out the videos on Pop's Reviews, Solo Promoter, and if whatever, and send emails to St. Patrick. We're not going to call him St. Patrick.
But for watching all these videos, I gotta call him that. For watching all the things you do.
All right, I'll give you that.
I like that.
That's a job. You know? Yeah.
You have manager's cards.
There is a chance that my phone may drop out on us at some point.
We're gonna be
very low on battery.
We're gonna be closing it out in a minute or so, in a couple of minutes. So if you guys would like to come on again, you're always welcome. Obviously, Pop's Review will be on, but if you guys if you'd like to come back on, St. Patrick, you're always welcome.
I love hanging out with pals online. I mean, this is, you know, as I get older, like for me, this is fun. I mean, I would rather do, what we're doing tonight as opposed to hanging out in a bar with somebody. I mean, as I get older, like I love this whole gaming world. I mean, it's important to me. I mean, the people in it are now important to me.
Now, here's, I just want to get, because the PJet, we were trying to figure out the tag teams for Tony Gurria, and I popped it up when you guys were riffing. But Dean Ho and Tony Gurria in the mid-'70s.
Okay.
And they lost it to the Valiants.
Okay.
So that's pretty interesting. Highlight Heyday, how you doing, my friend? He says, thank you for the great chat, guys. Take care, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yes. We thank everyone who's come in and out and stayed. It's awesome.
And Al, I want to thank you for having us and hosting us.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
You know,
I'm going to. I'm not joking. I'm gonna take a look at the game. I'm gonna have questions. I'll probably reach out to Pops and yourself.
More than happy.
And I'll tell you offline about some stuff because I don't want to say it here. Nothing. I'm just curious. A certain way I want to try to show the game off, and if you're okay with it, I'll do it. If you're not, I'll do it a different way because I respect that.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine.
If you're a WWF, whatever it's called now, I always say WWF. And you want to, this is okay. I want to say, when I check out a game, right? You know what I do? I watch videos. I go read. I say, okay, is this something that interests me? I'll give play.com a perfect example. It took me a long time to pull a trigger on a play game. I go, oh, yeah, this is different. This is different. I like it. It's something unique about it. I watched for a long time. I made my judgment. That's how I judge a game. And you buy, you play. You know, some games you like, right? Some games you buy, you're like, well, it's not for me. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's not for me. But check out if you want this game. There's videos out there now. I've already said Pop's Review, Hasim's channel, Solo Promoter.
Yeah.
And then you have access to St. Patrick. The email's here. Ask the questions if you're interested. If you're not and you came, you want to check it out, that's cool too. We're not here pushing. We're just this. If you're a wrestling fan, I have a few wrestling games. I even have Fire Pro Wrestling, which is a hoot. Once in a while, I just throw guys in. I just sit there and I giggle and I laugh and I'm like, because it's fun. It's fun. What I do like about this, and it plays similar to Tom Vogel, and that's a PC game. There. Logic, because I love my other games too. I love Filsinger, but sometimes like what Pop's Review said, and again they can't do everything, you know, it's fine. But so and so is not doing a moonsault. Sometimes when I fool around, I play the game and I'm recording, I'm like, Bob Backlund, he must have been working on that. You know, he does this back flip off the rope, and it makes it fun. Or I'll give him something else, like when someone's wrestling Andre. You can't help, you know. It's anything that's like a high impact. I'm always saying it's a kick to the leg, because like if it would be a kick to the leg, you're trying to take the big guy off his feet,
right?
Or somehow you rake him in the eyes or go lower. But it looks like, again, I have to give it a good run. But I'm saying from watching,
I understand
the videos, it has intrigued me again. And hats off to Pop's Review, our good friend Hasim, because he set this up. People thanking me. I didn't set this up. He asked me, and you can come on anytime, both of you, because I like having people on. That's when I like to do these, because I like to just talk. And if you leave me alone, boy, it goes off rail real fast.
No, it's good, man. Everybody likes your channel, man.
Yeah. Not everybody. I've had
listen, we all have detractors, okay? But
you do.
But I think the right perspective is 99 out of 100 guys who play our games or who are in this community. It's unreal how nice they are.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
One last question before we go, and then I'll let you guys have the fun. How do you? And again, you've asked me to write. I'm not a writer. I'm a talker, right? Even though I can think I can write. Sometimes I will write up a little things. How do you? You've reached out to some really interesting people in the community. I mean, literally in the community.
Yeah.
Dave Gardner.
Yeah.
Anthony Crooks. And there's a couple others. I mean, have you had, I think, did Ron Juckett write any? I think.
Yeah, Ron's written I think, twice. Yeah.
Yeah. Ron, great guy.
Yeah.
How do you decide? And you've asked me, and I greatly appreciate. I'm not a writer.
It's an interesting thing. One, I really like to have articles by the people who make the games. I really want them to brag on their own work. I want them to, and brag might be the wrong word, to explain it, to try. And again, the whole magazine only has two goals: to help a gamer find people to play his games, and to help gamers and backwards. I'm sorry, it's late.
No, I hear you.
I want it to be a place where both the people who make the games and who play the games find each other.
Yep.
And that's the only thing the magazine's for. But I want it to be good, and I usually write 3 articles myself. And I want them to be interesting. I want them to be about gaming. I also wanted early on, I want to have free content in every issue of the magazine. So there's some kind of free content for some game, or there might even be a whole game in every issue of the magazine as well.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I definitely want it to be, a positive environment. We're never going to have an article. Some people might not like this, but we're never going to have an article that just bashes a game or bashes a company. That's not the vibe I want to put out there into the world. I want to have a positive environment, because there are so many. If you ask me what game I like the most today, it's the game that I have on my table at home.
Yep.
That's my favorite game today, because I'm in love with that game for 3 hours. I mean, it's the coolest thing. It's the coolest process to learn a game. And then when you're playing the game, you sort of discover how good it is as you play it.
Yep.
Not necessarily as you read the rules, but when you can see. I thought, when I bought Red, White, and Blue Racing, it's one of the hardest games I've ever learned. It's absolutely the company's hardest game to learn. But it's so rewarding to go through the process of learning it, that every time that you pick up something else, you're like, oh, that's perfect. That makes so much sense. I love that, right? I love that. I totally see why they did that.
Mm.
And then at the end, you're like, now I have to make a race schedule, and man, I'm back to this, right? Yeah. Now you're invested. Now you're in the game. And I haven't bought a game in years and years that I don't at least like a little bit for some reason. I mean, they're all made so well now, and such smart people making the games. I mean, they're unreal. These games are so good compared to God bless the company, even compared to what Avalon Hill was doing years ago. That they're actually single guys right now making games that are so much more complex and immersive and creative and in depth compared to what an entire game company was doing 40 years ago. This is an amazing community doing amazing work. And especially the last 3 or 4 years in the world have been tough years.
Yeah.
And to imagine that all of these guys have brought that much happiness to so many people. I mean, who doesn't love this community for that reason, right? I mean,
and it's a fun thing to do, to relax and reminisce. Because again, I tell you right now, I love the stories about what we just said about when you meet. Again, we were talking wrestling, but we were saying like Hasim goes to that wrestling show with his brother, his dad. That's a beautiful memory.
Yeah.
Me going to the wrestling matches with certain things. And even when we went recently and we see the little kids all happy, that's, to me, we walked out of there, my wife, myself, said, that was awesome. Yeah, the matches were fun, right? But to see and the kids were so happy, you know?
And it's a shared experience. It's a shared experience with all of us. Because I don't know anyone else personally in my actual Indiana world. I don't know anybody else who plays any of these games. So to have hundreds of people online who I now call my friends, who are all into the same games and who love the same games. And I'm about to go to Colorado in July and meet everybody again at the Play Games conference that I met last year. And they love these games as well. And to spend 3 days where all of us are up late and we're talking about gaming continuously, morning, day, and night. And man, if you ever have a chance to get out there, I can't even put into words how fun it is. It's awesome. It's an amazing experience. Even if you're not that into the games, it is an amazing experience.
Awesome.
Yeah. Really.
We're gonna have our closing now. But first, just for me, thank you to Hasim. Thank you to ST Patrick.
Thank you all.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you for setting this up, Hasim. We're gonna start with ST Patrick, our esteemed guest, and we hope to have him on again. So,
of course.
Before links on the page, it's probably easier to find it on the page because it was in the chat at the top. You can find it there too. Links to how you can Sports Sim, the magazine, Squared Circle, and also ST Patrick's email if you have questions about whatever. Again, with any game, I said it before, I'll say it again, because sometimes people, oh, you're pushing a game. I'm telling you, I'm not telling anyone. If you're interested in any game, there's usually videos, or you have an opportunity. This is someone who created a game, was kind enough to come on, and if you're in the chat, answered the questions, has given his email, and there's other people who do the same thing. I always say hats off to them. That's a special thing. So you get a lot of wrestlers with this game. We just went through the WWF, and you have to determine if you want to purchase the game.
Absolutely.
But it was a fun chat, and
awesome.
Regardless. So thank you very much. Thank you, Hasim, for setting this up.
Absolutely.
ST Patrick, what are your final thoughts? I hope you enjoyed being on.
Well, I want to thank Al and Pops for just hooking up this whole thing. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it. Al, we finally got to meet, man.
Yes.
After a long time of emails, we
got
to say hi. Hasim, awesome to meet you as well. I'm sure there'll be 1,000 emails exchanged. So awesome. I look forward to it. I would tell everyone out there, look, buy all the games. I mean, when someone comes to me and says, well, I'm going to play that game instead, I say, so am I. I've got the game. I like all these games. I am the least competitive guy about this in the world. Buy them all. Enjoy them all. Find things that you like about all of them. Just have a good time. Have some peace in your world. Enjoy your childhood again. Enjoy the nostalgia. Learn some things. Like, just immerse yourself in something that you find fun and enjoyable. And you might be the only person in your world who enjoys this. But look, all of us are out here too. Like
true.
we're all here with you, like doing the same stuff. So, email Al, email Pops, email me, email all of us. Say hi. Say I like the game. I have a question about the game. I like the show. But embrace the community. Buy all these games, not just mine, but buy the rest of them as well. Like, I want them to succeed. It helps the whole community. A high tide is going to raise all boats. Like, I want the entire community of sports gaming to do well and to thrive. That's first and foremost.
It's a fun hobby, and I think I've met a lot of. Well, I have. I know I've met a lot of nice people. There's a lot of people saying thank you. That's really cool. So,
yeah, thanks, guys.
Hasim?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks again to Al because this is his channel essentially, but he had us on, and I just thank you, Al, for having us on.
Thank you for setting it up.
Yeah, no problem, and thank you again to Mr. Patrick for making a wonderful game. And
thank you.
Again, whether people have their things about whether it's a short game, a long game, the game is a great game, and it brings back so much nostalgia for wrestling fans. And as you're saying, just because you play one game doesn't mean you don't like another game. There's so many different options out there. Play all the different options, like you're saying. If one game is not for you, play something else or whatever. Or it's totally up to you. But this game that you have made here is a great game. For me personally, I think I'm trying to tighten one or two more screws with your game to kind of just really, really have it nicely fine-tuned and smooth for me, and then it's going to be real nice. But it's playing great already as is. But I thank you for all the work you've done for this game, though, and it's just great to be able to chat with fellow guys and other people in the community, and because like you're saying, this community is just a wonderful community. Guys are friendly enough that who have the same memories, I think, for different sports and wrestling and that. So it's just great to be with you fine gentlemen here tonight, and like you're saying, just have a nice little chat here tonight. It was really, really fun. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, Al, thank you.
Yep. I like to thank everybody. Normally I go back through, but we said hello to everyone. I like to thank. Oh wait, Golden Eagle. Real quick before ST Patrick, what's the name of the game? The squared. You tell.
The Squared Circle, which you can
Squared Circle, brother.
No. It's the Squared Circle, brother. Oh yeah,
we're gonna lay the smackdown on those Von Erichs.
The cream of
if it's in Texas,
cream of the crop
in front of my house.
I'm gonna climb into the Squared Circle at Stockade and Rethel.
The cream rises to the top. Yeah.
The Squared Circle, and you can find the links at the bottom of the show notes in the video. And they should always be there. My email address is also there. Everything's there. So it is the Squared Circle. Now, I was recently made aware that there's apparently another game out there called the Squared Circle.
Yes, there is.
I just found that out recently. We've actually called it this since 1986.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know. So
there is, because when I was there is one more. So anyway, I like to thank everybody. I thought this was good. When you said you want to come on at 7, I'm like, my wife's at the door. See, she's peeking. She's peeking, and I told her.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
There we go. But we're actually finishing up. But thank you, my lovely wife, Nurse Teresa, who's
my apologies.
No,
my apologies.
It keeps me out of it. Now it's gonna be like tomorrow I pay. But thank you very much to everyone in the chat. We had a lot of nice people in the chat. Check out their channels. It was a fun chat. We get to learn about a game. I'm gonna give it a second chance. Again, sometimes you look at something, you're like, wait, it's a different way of looking at it. And I wasn't quite sure, like, where's what are all these pages, But I've watched the videos. I now know if I have questions, I can contact ST Patrick. I can contact my friend, Mr. Hasim, Pops Reviews. And again, hats off to you, Pops. To me, you went the extra mile to show. Again, this is sometimes what people don't understand when they like to leave negative comments on channels. you know, I enjoy spending my entertainment dollars on games and showing them, and people like, you know, we have fun, we interact. So when Pops Hasim, he went out, and he likes wrestling. We know this if you know his channel, right? But he went out, he purchased the game, and now he's going to show it. So he is doing as ST Patrick does a service by making a game that people like to play. And we had 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Oh, I love your game. I just picked it up. Well, that's awesome. And there's going to be more people, hopefully, that they buy and they enjoy it. Will there be people when you buy a game you don't enjoy it? Yeah, there will. That happens. And I can't do nothing about that.
Right.
But when someone, Hasim, goes out, spends his money, and then says, I'm going to show you this game. I'm going to give you a tutorial. I'm going to show you different ways to play it. He has more than several videos. And this is a battle royal. This is quick play. Oh, I've decided, because someone I think left because I read the comments on my friends' things. And if there's sometimes I have to bite my tongue with some of because I don't want to. I'll do it on mine, because it's my channel, but I don't want to do it on someone else's. But he's sharing and he's showing, and that helps for someone to make a decision. Whether you want to try it or not, that's cool. But I always, and I'm going to give the example, the play games. I watched a ton of videos before I said, you know what, I'd like to try that game. And I did, and I'm enjoying them. And it's a learning curve for some of them. Any game's a learning curve. But I just went through, if you're interested, again, I just went through 140, I think it was 141, 142 singles wrestlers. I might just put Mario Mancini against the guy I never heard of for the championship. I don't care. It's my, I can make this whatever, I'm not going to tell you the small town, but I can make it my small town title. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of content. And you can do what you want. And the best part, what I like, ST Patrick has made it. You can email him. If you have a question, he's already said he'll respond to it. Oh, there it is. The good Dr. David Little has joined us.
Dave,
the manager of the trio.
You missed. Come on, buddy.
Colorado in a month,
good
Dave.
man. I hope you're feeling better, David.
Oh,
Hope you're feeling better.
yeah. If you're feeling, yeah.
So thank you very much to everybody. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to ST Patrick. Thank you to Hasim, Pops Reviews. Please check out the game. Make your own determination with the videos. And if you, again, contacting ST Patrick, I was almost said St. Patrick. I was told not to say that.
Ask, not told. Ask.
Ask. So, here we go. Good evening, gentlemen. ST. Good to see you again. Hope he was just talking about that. He's going to be at Denver.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, and excited.
You guys are going to make me have to save my pennies to come down there.
At some point, we'll have to go out there. So, thank you very much. Stay safe. Be smart. Treat people the way you want to be treated. If you enjoyed the stream, hit that like button. If you have not subscribed to my channel or Pops Reviews channel or any of the content creators in our community, please check them out. If you want to subscribe, please do so. If you do subscribe to any channel, hit the bell for notification when they go live or upload. And if you're enjoying their content, it's important to hit that like button. It shows you're enjoying the channel, and it actually helps for small channels that we're all small channels, right? To the algorithm that we don't get buried by some dude opening up an umbrella and somehow 2 million idiots watch it. And I'm being funny. If you want to watch someone open up an umbrella, beautiful, right? But I'm being a little funny there. But thank you very much. Greatly appreciate your time. God bless. Love you all. We'll see you all again soon. You know what's coming, folks. Peace. Bye-bye.
See you guys later.